Okay? Those are my scores. And I've taken this test once 20 years ago, and 20 years ago I ended up with somehow 1, which is 2% white, and 1 less yellow. The red was the same. I was 39 red both times, but or 87%. So I would have been 11% yellow and 1% and 2% white, but anyway. So we're going to get started in a second, and we're going to kind of go through some things to deal with, and I'll explain why we're doing this. Are we good? We're streaming? Hello, everyone on live stream. Yay. Okay. And they didn't hear any of that because the mic's right here. They all were like, woo! Okay. Shh. All right. So hopefully you were able to use that slide to figure out your percentages and get that covered. Okay? So let me just kind of introduce this thing. So I call this up to the challenge. Okay? And really that's the whole point is, are we up to the challenge of life, the challenge of covenanting, the challenge of being called to set apartness, to kadosh life, to righteousness? Are we up to the challenge of loving him with all of our heart, minds, being, and strength, and loving each other? That's really it. It's a challenge. Let me ask you, has anybody found this easy to do? Okay, so I'm guessing for all of us it has been challenging. Okay? And I'm going to also guess that the loving each other is actually the harder of the two. Can we agree? Okay. And so I have come to the conclusion, it's my opinion, that one of the reasons we have a challenge in loving each other is because we don't understand each other. And I think one of the reasons that we have struggle in understanding each other is because we don't understand ourselves. Anybody have a struggle with things that you do or don't do and can't understand why you either do it or can't do it? Like everybody. I mean, that's our struggle, okay? How many of you don't like to raise your hands? Okay, caught a few again, okay. This has got a participation level to it. By the way, the red, yellow together in humor is called sarcasm, okay. In case you're wondering where my sense of humor is, that's the wise guy thing. It's the red-yellow combination. Okay, so it occurred to me years ago as we were trying to, because look, I'm watching the people today, and I'm comparing it also to what Scripture talks about, like especially Paul talks about this, is the state of the human condition in terms of our interacting with each other, interacting with our Creator, and where the struggles are. And Rav Shaul or Paul describes this as we are still acting like we're babes who are suckling at the breast as opposed to full adults who can sit down and cut our own food. And I don't think it's changed very much. And that's not an attack on you. But I think it's maybe a judgment or an attack on that we haven't addressed the real problem. Okay? I think the problem is not that you don't have enough scripture knowledge. I don't think the problem is you don't have enough Torah knowledge. I think there is knowledge or information, not just relationship, but there's information you're missing, though, that the scriptures doesn't really talk about. Look. Okay? Here's your scriptures. There's a big one, but anyway, here's your scriptures. It only has so much information in it. Now, it does have a lot. I mean, it's a fairly big book. I remember when I first looked at it, I thought it was one of the biggest books I ever saw, right? All these 66 different books. I mean, that's a big book. Lots of pages, over 1,000 pages. I mean, it's a big thing. So, wow, that's a lot of information. But it doesn't cover everything. Now, there might be some pastors out there that say, oh, the Bible covers everything. Well, it covers most situations and stuff. But it doesn't really give us all the guidance for the issues that we have personally. The human condition, okay? And so it's not designed to address that. It's designed to address the vertical condition. What do we need to do to please our Creator? And so we have a different condition that we really struggle with, which is really our personal lives, because I know that a lot of us are most frustrated with, the one person we're more frustrated with than anybody is ourselves. And James kind of touches on this, right, when he talks about looking in the mirror. But he's still talking about looking in the mirror from a Torah context. I want you to look in the mirror from a comparing yourself to becoming Yeshua-like context. And even then, when people have done that, they do it still in a Torah context. Okay? They don't think about the personality and the character. And so I have happened to be, for whatever reason, a student for many, many, many years, probably longer than even studying the Bible, since I was a very young teenager, of what makes us do what we do and why do we struggle with things. And so I've studied these things for many, many years. I've studied all kinds of personal development and personality things and success skills and all of those things. And so that's why life coaching is something we kind of mix in with this as much as we can as well, because that's a missing element in your book. Something we need that the book doesn't say a lot about. Now, the concepts are there, especially in Proverbs. There's a lot of that, right? There's a lot of concepts for the wisdom that we need. But we have to understand ourselves first so that we can understand others better. That's kind of the whole point of the Up to the Challenge. At least the initial teachings that we started doing was understanding yourself so you can understand others better. Because part of our struggle is that we want others to understand us and to get us, and so they could treat us the way we want to be treated. And most of the time you probably think, well, the reason you're not getting treated the way you want is because they don't get me. They don't understand me. Or you don't understand why would they treat anybody that way, because you certainly wouldn't. But they're not you. And so the answer to the question is that you're actually speaking truth. They really don't get you. And you don't get them. Because you really don't understand you, so you really don't understand them. Okay, so we started using this idea of a personality study. Okay, and some people got all upset with us online. Oh, well, that's all secular, blah, blah, blah. Listen, if you don't like it, don't listen. Turn off your YouTube. Because my personality style is red, which means I don't care. Okay? I mean, from the point of view of like, if you turn it on or turn it off, or do it or don't do it, I don't care. I gave you the information, do what you want with it. Okay? And so, and by the way, that doesn't make it the right way to handle things. I'm just telling you that's where I'm coming from. It won't hurt my feelings at all. Okay? Now, of course, if you're a blue personality and you put all the effort into making a presentation and people just ignored you, you would have your feelings hurt. Because you put all that effort in, all those hours, and you put that thing together, and, like the person who puts the project, even when you were a student, and you put all this effort into a thing, and even if you got an A on it, and the teacher goes to give it back to you, go, oh, how'd I get it? Go, here, it's an A. That's it, just here, it's an A, not, oh, that's wonderful, and I loved it, and I appreciate all the effort you put in. No, hey, you got an A. You want to be told that you're appreciated for all the effort you put in. Okay? All right, so understanding ourselves to understand, other people. So I gave you what I thought was, over the years, I've taken lots of the personality tests. I've studied them out. The one I liked the best at the time, and maybe be a better one out there at some point, is this one called the ColorCode, because I found it to be the simplest and in some ways one of the most accurate. Now, like many of the studies, they do it into 4 categories. I mean, usually 4 animal types, or 4, they use different ways of doing it. Like, there's the engineer and the analyst, whatever, and then there's the drivers, and lots of different studies, or then use the alphabet soup like Myers-Briggs. Well, I'm an ENTP. Congratulations, you're an ENTP. What does that mean? I'm an ENTP. I forget what the letters stand for, even though I know what my letters are. Okay? Because the letters don't seem to stand for things that they make sense for, because it's not always the first letter of the word. So you're like, argh. Okay, so it confuses us. So I find the colors are very simple. They're red, blue, white, and yellow. Okay? And the colors do sort of exemplify the personality a little bit. Okay? Reds tend to be that sort of more strong and can get angry, and they turn red type thing. Blues can get very blue. Whites are like, what do you think? When people they have to wave the white flag. Whites are about peace. They want it to just stay calm. They don't want conflict. And yellows are like the big smiley yellow face. We just want to be smiley and sparkly and have fun, and life is just a joy. Okay? So the colors are selected with good reason. Okay? But what I want to do then for all of you so hopefully you took the test now, and you're going to know from doing your math and doing the score, because I had the slide up there before, and you could see where you are. The test is going to give you a spectrum of your color spread. Okay? Your highest number is probably your strongest color, that you are walking in that personality style more often than not. Okay? But recognize that you are not red or white or yellow or blue. That is your dominant maybe. Maybe your dominant is only 1 or 2% bigger than your second one. Okay? So for some of you, you're purple. Okay, you're red and blue, or you're white and blue and you're light blue, or you're blue and yellow and you're green, or whatever it is, right? So there's flavors to this. So when we go through what we go through today, I want you to realize that some of the things I'm going to say that are going to describe a particular color will nail you to a T, and some won't have anything to do with you, even though that's your dominant color. Because when I read, for example, we're going to talk today about the negatives or the limitations of our colors. Because last time we did this, and that's why we're not going to go over that all again. Last time we did this, we talked about just understanding what each color is, and from a more positive point of view, Because each color has its plus. I mean, it's just a wonderful aspect to each color, and where they flourish and where they're awesome. But you know what? There's also parts of your personality that are hampering your ability to function socially and vertically, emotionally, physically. All these things can be affected by what color is driving. Okay? Remember how I keep talking about don't let the emotions drive? All right? So when it comes to colors, that's a big thing, because there's a negative emotional side to all 4 colors. Okay? Each one has, I'm red, so I'll talk about that. And by the way, you notice the shirt? Okay. And that was not on purpose. I just put this on this morning, forgot we were doing this, because I thought we were doing this tomorrow. So, the negative emotion for red is anger. And if I let anger grab the steering wheel, we're going to have a problem. I'm going to have a problem. And anybody around me when I'm angry is going to have a problem, because it's going to overspill and affect the relationships. And I need to understand how it affects me and how it affects others around me. All the emotions and all of the things that we're going to learn about, how does it affect you and how does it affect others? Because hopefully we are grasping the reality that what we're doing is a group dynamic. Okay, Yahweh did not call us to be hermits, to live on our own island by ourselves. So you were called to do what he has in mind and created to do what he has in mind in a group dynamic. That doesn't mean you have to be totally social. It just means that you have to be able to function in a group. And some of us are much more gregarious and outgoing, and some of us are much more quiet and reserved. But still, you have to be able to do that in a group function, which means that the quiet, reserved ones have to be much more comfortable and to acclimate to the bigger group functions. And then the really gregarious ones have to tone it down for the people that really don't need it to be that loud. And so we learn to adjust to each other by recognizing us. And then if we learn about the other styles and the other tendencies that people have, we can start to recognize that person is this whatever color, and I'm this other color, and I know that my behavior in this certain area could be very challenging to that color. So one of the things that the gentleman who wrote this, which is a Dr. Taylor Hartman, when he put it together, the book talks about not only each color, but it talks about the relationships between them. So he would take the red and the red and say, this is where they would do well together, this is where they would bad. Then red and blue, then red and white, and red and yellow. Then he took the blue. Blue and blue, blue and red, blue, it's just kind of, so you know how these combinations would work. And if you understand this, some of you, how many of you after we did this understood your spouse better? How many of you understood your children better? Okay, a lot of hands have gone up because you start to recognize, oh, I'm dealing with a blue or a white, and I'm this, and that's why it's irritating me. Okay? Okay, because if you're a blue personality mom, everything has its place, and it better be in it. And your daughter or son is yellow, and nothing has a place, and they can't find it if you give them a map. They turn the map into an airplane and throw it. I thought I gave you the map. Oh, yeah, it's over there somewhere on the floor. It flew real nicely. And you're going to be like, ah! Okay? And so this is where we start to learn. Oh, and then, you know what? You won't get as aggravated because you'll recognize, okay, how do I successfully interact with someone in that style of personality? How can I get them to do? What would motivate them? Not what would motivate you. See, often we try to think everybody's like us, and they should be like us, of course, because we're perfect, and they're not. And so therefore, they should see the world and life the way we do. And so whatever would work for me should work for them. How does that work, people? That's not working for anybody. Okay? I've had to explain to parents. I've had to explain to my wife. I had to recognize myself. When I'm looking at my children, for example, they're not me. So when I was a kid and would have handled things a certain way, they will handle it probably differently. That's not to say that they're not you in certain other ways where, you know, the old apple doesn't fall far from the tree thing. So they're going to imitate and learn certain things from you. But their personalities is what I'm talking about. Certain behaviors they're going to pick up from you, especially the ones that you don't want them to. You know. And I've had parents and people that I've talked to where they've said to me, well, I don't understand why, you know, and he or she, they're talking about their son or daughter, blah, blah, blah. And I say, because they're you. Well, what do you mean? There's no way. And I go, because I know them and I know you. You're the same. That's how I know. Okay? But also, some of you go from the other side of it where, like, I just don't get her. Yes, you don't, because she's such a different personality than you are. Or I just don't get him. Okay? I grew up only with brothers. So when I have now a wife and a daughter, I learned there's a thing called drama. Who knew? With boys, there's no drama. There's blood. There's no drama. You know, there's teeth falling out and stuff like that. And with girls, there's drama. Which I figured out the best way to handle that is I have a closet full of Oscars for Best Supporting Actor and Actress in a Drama. You know, here you go. Wonderful performance. Because you have to understand, as a red, see now the problem is, if you depending on your personality, as a red, I want to no drama. Take that drama somewhere else, and I don't want to be involved in it. I don't want to fix it. Just do it somewhere else. The blue gets sucked right into it, right into the drama. Okay, and so you know, and the white might think they're playing and jump into the drama thinking it's fun. I mean, the yellow, oh, that looks like fun. Let me jump into the drama. They're acting something out. Okay. And then the white's like going in a corner going, please, everybody stop. Okay? All right. You can ask my children and my family. I said, sometimes when I had my office in the basement, they would come down with the drama and I'd tell them, go away. But no, I don't deal with it. I don't need the drama. I don't do drama. Okay. So, but as we learn and understand about ourselves and understand the other side, okay? Then the next step with this, which we're going to learn a little bit more about today as we deal with it, is that the idea was that as you came to understand yourself, and he has a second book, that was to encourage you to then look at the colors that you're not as strong in and embrace the strengths of those personalities. And also notice that you may also have some of the negatives. Because you know what? How many of you have less than 4 colors? Are there very many that have only 3 or 2? Only a few. Most of you have all 4 colors, okay? So that means that you may, let's say your weakest color is white or yellow or red or blue. It doesn't matter. Whatever that weakest color is, you may not have the good part of it. You may only have the bad part of it, okay? Even though that is your color. It's a smaller percentage. And the idea is to find all the things that are you, eliminate or weaken and dilute out the negatives, the limitations. And he calls them limitations because they limit your ability to function. And work on the strengths and embrace the strengths. Those of you that raised your hand that have less than 4 colors, you need to figure out how to embrace the strengths of the colors you're missing. I'm missing 2. Okay? And so that means I've got really huge gaps in my ability to function in those 2 areas. So that's a challenge for me, okay? And so, but I know enough about it that I can choose, okay, let me just kind of add this into the mix. The color, especially your main one, is what you do without thinking. No effort at all. If you're blue, you're blue. If you're red, you're red. Without having to make any effort or thought, you will act and respond generally in that, that personality style. That doesn't mean you can't actively choose to be something different, to choose a different reaction or response, or to take different actions. It's just not natural to you. Now, some of you may be thinking, oh, well, but I'm about 25% everything, so does that mean I can be whatever I want anytime I want? No. You want to get to that place, but what it means is you probably are very, whatever the one color, I'll go through all four. Let's give you an example. You might be very red at work. You might be very blue at home. You could be very white, at the congregation, and yellow with your friends. So in other words, circumstantially, whatever the circumstance is, you'll respond generally the same way all the time. So don't think that you might be red sometimes or blue sometimes in the same thing. No, you'll always tend to respond situationally the same with one of those four. But you're familiar enough with the four that you should, if you were to choose, be able to fluctuate between them a little bit more easily because you have four. Okay? And don't think for a second just because you have a smaller percentage of something doesn't mean that color can't grab the wheel. Okay? You don't need much for that color to grab the wheel. Okay? And you have to be careful about that. Just because it's not your dominant doesn't mean that it can't grab a hold of things and grab the wheel. Now, you can choose to leave it, because maybe it needs to grab the wheel. Then maybe wake that color up a little bit. Say, here, grab the wheel. A lot of you men need to do that with your red. Okay? If you're not red as your personality style and you're married, you may struggle in the leadership part because you need the red to drive. But you need the other colors to balance how you drive. Okay? I'm just giving you a little bit of insights here. All right? And so just recognize these things. So the idea was then so that we can now understand. Now, what we haven't done enough, I think, focus on, and I know people maybe think, well, I don't like that, Rabbi. You want to talk about negative stuff. And there are all those people that came out of the name it, claim it, speak it. Oh, don't speak that. It's going to make it happen. We don't believe in magic. So if I feel like a cold is coming on, I don't have a problem saying, you know what, I think I'm getting a cold. Now you brought it on you. You cursed yourself. Stop that. Let's grow up, okay? That is silly voodoo magic thinking or something. Because if that worked, how come when I think $1 million, that doesn't show up? Okay? It doesn't work that way. Because people are like, oh no, I'm not claiming that, or I'm not. Who's claiming it? I said, I noticed that I woke up this morning, maybe I feel like my allergies are bad, or so what? I'm going to take steps to try to fix it. I didn't own it and embrace it and welcome it in or anything. This is coming from other places where you were taught wrong. Okay, don't do this. Break free of that bondage, because that's a fear you have. And then you become afraid to say anything. And I've had people say to me, oh, no, don't say that. I'm like, why? What is going to happen? Oh, you're just going to bring it on yourself. That's not the way it works. Calm down. Okay? Okay, so that being said, I want to go through today, and we may even take this then into the next part. Maybe we'll get 2 colors done today, and then we'll spend more time on the other 2 on Wednesday. But I want us to look at the limitations, because these are the things that are holding you back. You were very happy to find out all the wonderful stuff about your colors when we talked last time. I feel good. I'm yellow, white, or red, or blue, whatever, and I'm going to be proud of my thing. But you know what? There's all kinds of parts about it that are really screwing up your life. I'm going to be blunt. I'm red. Okay? And there's a time for blunt. But there's also people that didn't really like the way I teach very much when they first started hearing it because they didn't like blunt. They wanted to be a little softer because blunt can hurt. And I get that. But it's hard for me because then when I get up here, I'm blazing red. Okay? Which is really all I've got to work with. When I saw the chart, I'm 87% red, 13% yellow, and that's it. So that's why you get a few sarcastic jokes during the teaching and a lot of in your face. That's about all I've got. All right? Now, so I thought to help this out, what we would do is play a couple of short videos on the screen here by Dr. Taylor Hartman himself. You can find these all on YouTube. Okay, they're up there free. And I want to play, before we talk about it, him describing each particular color. All right? And so we're going to start with, well, let's start with this. How many reds do we have in the room? Okay, we'll start with the reds. Put your hands down. How many blues? Okay, a lot more. Put it down. How many whites? I'm glad you guys actually participated. Okay, put your hands down. How many yellows? Okay. Okay, I was waiting for that. Usually there's a woo from the yellows. Okay, so the yellows, when I say hands up, they're like doing the wave, you know. All right. Okay, so so we're going to start with red, then we'll go through blue, white, and yellow. Adrian? Did you not take the test? Okay, A's, I think I said this earlier. A's are red, B's are blue, C's are white, D's are yellow. You might have been late. I said it right at the beginning. How many people heard me say that at the beginning? No, we started at 3:15, but you weren't here. Okay. All right. That's okay. No problem. A's are red, B's are blue, C's are white, D's are yellow. So you should know your colors, okay? Now bear in mind, though, don't ignore the other three if you have one that's dominant and think that, okay, I have the one dominant. And so, unless you're like me, where you really only have one color, okay? So I'm pretty much red in every situation. You have the opportunity to be any of your other colors that are smaller percentages. If you've got at least double digits in something, you can be that pretty good. And some people see me and they think they've seen me having a great time and playing and goofing off and everything else. I've got 13% yellow. I can do that, right? Okay, so I have that there. I don't have any white or blue to work with. I have to think about the moments that require those things, all right? Okay. So that being said, I want to go ahead. Each of these videos are only like about 5 minutes long, so we'll play the video first, then I'll come up and we'll start talking more about the colors from the point of view of the limitation. He's just going to describe the color in general. Now, what I want you to listen to before we play, so what I want you to listen to, especially if you're red, okay, I want you to not think, oh, well, that's not me. Of course, not every aspect is going to be you perfectly because you're not just red. But reds tend to have these various personality tendencies, okay? And some of them you have in spades. You've got them strong. And it does describe you, and you'll get that. For the rest of you, listen for the parts that you need to understand about the red that you need to embrace, the things that reds do that you don't do that you should be doing. Or listen for the parts that are negative that you have, even though your red isn't so dominant, but sometimes that red grabs the wheel and you're those things that are the negatives in the red. Okay? All right, let's go and play this.
Okay, so what makes a red a red? First of all, they're driven by the motive of power. Every red, male, female, old, young, black, white, doesn't matter what you are. If you're red, your goal in life is to move from A to B. That's what makes you uniquely you. Now, how you do that is very, very different. Not everybody's the same. But some of the traits that seem to attract reds, for example, let's start with the positives. Red people get things done. One of the things I love most about reds in my life is I trust them. I count on them. I believe in them. They like to make things happen. They don't want to be lazy. They don't even understand why people don't choose to make something of their lives. They're very pushy about themselves. Like they make themselves perform, make themselves get things done. Reds don't often tell you about the abuse they give to themselves, but they do expect things of themselves. They expect high standards and performance from themselves. And while they're not going to give you anything to use against them, they know when they are performing and when they're not. Reds are very responsible. Like they like to make things happen. I call them pack mules because they'll take anything and make it happen for everybody. That's one of the great gifts that Reds bring to things. I always want to play on a competitive sports team with a Red because they want to win. They're very competitive, very responsible. They always show up and they take responsibility for what they need to do to make things happen. Reds are very determined. They don't just back down easily. One of the things I enjoy most about Reds is knowing they will see things across the finish line. Now, a good Red will carry you across the same finish line. I worked for a company for many, many years with a Red leader that I came to respect and love deeply. And this man always wanted to carry everybody over the finish line, not just himself. A bad red will just kick you to the curb before you get to the finish line. And there's the difference. They're both going to get to the finish line, but a good red brings you with them. A bad red kicks you to the curb. So some of the negative, one more positive about reds is their confidence. I love the way reds, like they go to a job interview and they're asked, can you do this? And they always say yes. They can't. There's no way they know how to do that, but they'll go home that night on YouTube and find a way to do it. They'll make themselves know what they need to know to get the job. The goal is to get the job, but they're not going to tell you about their flaws in the process. And because they make things happen, they're confident. And that's the essence of how you build confidence, is watch reds, because they do. Now the negatives. Reds can be very much about themselves. Probably the hardest teenager you'll ever raise is a red teenager who's very selfish at that age and then also red. So they think they're always right. It's like in the DNA. Honestly, reds believe they're right. Now, often they are. That's what's ironic. They pay a lot of attention. But there is such a thing as a dumb red. So they're dumb, but they're red. So they think they're not dumb, but they are. And that's difficult. And if you've married one of those, we owe you for life for taking them off the street, because they're difficult. But a smart red still struggles in that they always have to be right. And in being right, if you disagree with them, then you're probably wrong. Reds can debate, by the way, all the time. They don't personalize things like that at all. They love to debate. But if you personalize it, you're in trouble with them, because they're going to be relentless. They're going to want to win the argument. But they love a good debate, and they respect people that can argue effectively with them. Just know that when you deal with a red, you've got to know your facts. You've got to know your stuff. Another red negative is their insensitivity. It's so funny to me. I'll watch a red and they'll say to somebody, you know you're fat. And the person will go, what? Like you need to say that? And then the red will say, you don't know you're fat? Now you really have a problem. Because they are so matter of fact. They don't mean it as harshly as it comes across. So remember that when you're dealing with a red, you can't personalize things that they say, or you're going to miss the beauty of what they're saying and how they're saying. Red. What do I like about reds? I like them to lead. I like them to get things done. I like them when they speak their mind. They're assertive. They tell me what they believe. I'm never wondering what a red is thinking. What don't I like about a red? I don't like it when they're selfish. I don't like it when it's always their win at my expense. I don't like it when a red is rude. When their time is more important than anyone else's. They'll come late because their time is more important than yours is. I don't like it when a red is condescending. They think they're smarter than somebody else, and they talk down to them. There's so much about reds. By the way, just so you know, for me personally, when I wrote the color code, they were the color I struggled with most. Today, I don't have a red I don't enjoy, like, or get along with. What's changed? Not the red, me. I started embracing what's so right about them, what's so good about them, and because of that, they have valued me more because they respect me, because I'm more able to speak their language as well as my own. That's red. So how did you like today's video? Thumbs up?
Thumbs up. You see, I was right. Okay, no. You know, I heard another guy doing something, it was a parenting thing that had to do with using the color code with children, and he was red. This guy happens, you'll figure out later, but Taylor Hartman's yellow. But anyway, and he said, look, speaking as a red, he said, look, life would just be easier if everybody just recognized we're right and just would listen, and then it would be much so easier. But look, this is the red. Now notice that what he encouraged you to understand about us reds, and I'm going to speak for reds. I can't say that once we get to the other colors, so I'll start with me. Okay, is that I can tell you that as I was growing up, I was much, much, much more the negative things. I was looking for debates, looking to argue, I loved a challenge, but I was not only wanting the challenge, but I wanted to show you how wrong you were and how right I was, and all those things. Okay, and you could even ask Uncle Bob. I was very much that way 20 years ago when I started ministry. It was not good for what I was trying to do, obviously, but I didn't understand me, and I didn't understand the other person. Okay? Now, some of you can understand that. He said that selfish maybe as a teenager, but if you can embrace that leadership thing from the going across the line and bringing others with you, that could be mitigated quite a bit. I think a lot of you have seen that with me in leadership now. My whole thing is to bring everybody across the line, okay? But I did have those selfish things earlier in life as well. Not that can't come up now, but these are the things. I didn't talk a whole lot about the anger and the other things that Reds can have an issue with. I'm going to read you more about that from his book. But notice what he did say. He started to figure out how to appreciate the other person in their differing personality. And that's going to go across the board. He may not say it in every video, but if you're whatever color you are, you need to be able to appreciate the other people in the other colors. Okay? If you're blue, you got to figure out how to appreciate the whites and the yellows and the reds. If you're red, you got to appreciate the whites, yellows, and blues. All the different, you have to be able to appreciate, because they all bring something wonderful and can also irritate the you-know-what out of you. Okay? But if you understand that if you want to get something done, okay, you would go, reds are people that get things done. But by the way, reds don't necessarily get it done the way the blues would like it to be done. It's just done. Okay? All right? All right, so good enough, a red can say that without any problem. A blue, no. Okay? It's right or it's wrong, that's it. Okay? And that's important if you're dealing with each one. Because both of them can say, see, there's a lot of similarities in personalities. Like a red and a blue could both say, well, if you give it to me, I'll get it done. Well, one's going to do it in a much more meticulous way, a very clear and specific way to do it. The other one's going to just say, it works, it's finished, it's done. Okay? All this stuff on the floor, that now needs to go into drawers. You look later, there's nothing on the floor, it's all in drawers. But it's in the wrong drawers. At least that's what the blue told me. Who knew? I don't have any blue. You didn't want it on the floor and you want it in the drawer. There it is, it's done. Okay? And so we're going to talk about these things for your reds and for you to understand and appreciate the reds and what we struggle with. Now, when I talk about the negatives, if you're red, I want you to hear what you need to work on. If you're not red, I want you to hear what you need to be patient with and understand where the red struggles. Okay? Understand, red, blue, white, yellow, doesn't matter. The things that are limitations in your color, you are not doing on purpose to irritate anybody. Okay? It's just your default personality style. But by the way, I also don't want you to say, well, it's just the way I am, it's too bad on you. No, don't. Well, most colors wouldn't say that, but you might think that and act that way. Well, it's the way I am, and that's just the way it is. No, it's the way you are, and now just like when you come to Yeshua, when we come into Torah observance, it's come as you are, but don't stay that way. Okay? So I don't want to hear anybody thinking, well, I'm just yellow, or I'm just red, well, that's just too bad. No. Yes, that describes why you just did what you did, or why you didn't do what you should have done, or whatever it is, but it's not an excuse or a justification for not trying to adjust. Are we clear? Okay? So there's a lot in here, so I'm going to try to kind of touch on some of the things real quickly. What I want to talk about very quickly is that he has a little chart in here that talks about, what he calls charactered, which is when you're at the most congruent in terms of your personality, which is that you have the positive traits of each of the personalities other than just your own dominant color. That's when you have developed character. When you can walk in the strengths of all four. Okay? The next level he calls healthy, which is when you're at least walking in the positive traits of your own, whatever your dominant color is. Unhealthy would be if you're walking in the negative traits within your own. So that's what you tend to walk in, is the negative sides of it. And then what he calls unhealthy or sick emotionally. Okay, where there's an unhealthy place in your life is when you're walking in the negative traits of all of the four colors. So you may have all four, but are you embracing the negative sides of them, or are you embracing the full spectrum and trying to work on the positive sides of them? Okay? And so look at the red, and I'll try to hit on a few of the points. Let's keep this up here so I can see what time it is, so I can kind of know where we're at. Okay, there we go. Okay, so our reds. Now, I want to make sure that everybody caught something, because I don't think we were clear about this last time. Reds are all about power, but not what you thought probably. How did he define power? The ability to go from A to B. So reds are not necessarily power hungry, wanting to just be sitting on a throne and having their ring kissed. Because you know why? That accomplishes nothing. So that's not the red. The red would be bored out of his mind and want to shoot himself if he had to sit all day on a throne waiting for people to kiss his ring. Okay? So it's not about being in charge. It's about being with the authority to accomplish the A to B. Okay? So when he talks about reds being power wielders, it's important, and that's why I like the video, because he didn't really express that as clearly when I was reading the book as he did when he put it on the screen. It's in his mind, he means by, this is a really good example also about Scripture. When you read Scripture and you read a word that somebody uses when they're teaching or speaking, or a prophecy or an epistle, they can use a phrase or a word, but you need to know what they mean by it. Because when I first taught you that reds are the power wielders, or they're about power, that was in the previous time we talked about this, you have to understand what that definition, like the way he said it is. It's the ability to go from A to B. I want to get us from here to there. And now, you know I'm red now. You know it's 99%, I'm 87% red. Can you see that now and how often I talk about I'm trying to get you from here to the kingdom, and that's all I care about? And so everything is designed to make that happen. And if you get in the way of that, you may get some harshness, which is not really a good thing for me to do. But you're getting in the way of the progress. I want to get you there. So sometimes I may be more blunt and in your face because I just want to get you there. I have to find better ways to do that, though, because it's not always effective to be blunt and in your face. And some of you who've worked with me over the years have noticed a change, especially when you counsel privately, where I found other ways to use my other personalities, to use the colors I'm weak in or don't have, to get some of those benefits, okay? So that's really important. So that was a clarification that I like that I saw on the screen, okay? So there's the idea that we can be, as reds, insensitive, okay? It's not that we don't care. We just don't express or come across very clearly that we care. Not the way you want, okay? He gives an example of, in a story he tells in here, of a young red teenager who was supposed to go to the library to get what they need for a project, and while they're waiting to go, the parents have a blowout fight, almost go to, like they're going to have a divorce, and as soon as things calm down enough, the teenager goes, does this mean we're not going to the library? Am I still going? And that's like, why are you still caring about the library? Mom and dad are about to kill each other. Because the red's like, well, when that's over, I'm still trying to get from A to B. Okay? And I'm not involved in the drama, and you guys will either figure it out or get divorced, but I need to get to the library. Okay? Now, switch it around. One of the parents is red, and the child is, let's say, blue. Okay? And so the red parent then says to the child, because after all, the accomplishment of the task to be done, or the blue parent might have come to, because it's on the list, and the blue has to check off their list. And takes the child and says, we're going to the library. And the child's like, how can we go to the library? You and Daddy are fighting. Are you about, So the different personalities will handle it differently, right? The white says, this is too much drama. I'm going in my room for a week. And the yellow's like, we have to still go to the library? That's boring. Okay, so we can come across as insensitive. So when you're needing to get stuff out and you're talking to a red, the red doesn't want to hear, it says blah, blah, stop, enough, we're not interested. That's not because we're not interested, it's just that I want to know, get to the point where I can fix it. Okay? I don't need the whole story, just what's the problem? And you'll find that sometimes, and I've done this to you and I apologize, I try very hard to let you finish. I've been told that I don't do a good job of that, so I've been working on it. But I want to let you finish. But the point is, as soon as I figured out what the problem is, I'd like to interrupt, fix the problem, and move on and save myself a half an hour. Okay? I've had people call up to counsel, and after an hour, I still have no idea if there's a question coming. Okay, I now know half your life story. Is there a question? What can I do? Give me something to do. I just wanted you to listen. Ugh. Okay? All right, but also understand, and then this goes back to understanding the limitations and negatives. If you send a text that has to go more than one screen, it will not be read. Not because they're mad at you, it just says, I don't have time to read all that. If you couldn't make your point in 4 sentences or less, then I don't have time. That's not right. That's not the way we should be. I'm just trying to help you understand and help myself understand. This is where I struggle. So those of you that like to send me an email to ask me a question after 4 pages of giving me the background you think I need, that email never gets looked at. Probably. Not on purpose. I think, okay, I'll make time to do that later. I need to deal with all the things I can go quickly right now, and then it falls through the cracks. Which is why I say, better to call me, then I'm stuck on the call and have to listen. But if you send me something that I can ignore and move on because it's too long and it's going to slow me down, that's part of the problem. And you Reds agreeing and understanding and feeling what I'm talking about. Okay? Now, that being said, you need to recognize that, because if you're going to function successfully, we're going to do this with all 4 colors, the Reds need to learn how to adjust and adapt, and you have to adapt to them as well. So if you know you're dealing with a red, you need to get right to the point, get to it clearly. Now, if you are really emotionally going through something, which the blues can tend to do, it's hard for you to figure out how to put your thoughts very clearly. But you're going to have to try to do that and understand that if you can't, the red will sit there and deal with it, but try to get to the point in that. Because we just want to know what it is and then we'll fix it. Okay? We'll come up with a solution and a plan and a program. And like he said, even if we don't know how to do it, we always say yes and then we figure it out. And there's times when people have actually asked me, like, do you actually know how to do that? I'm like, no. Then why'd you say yes? Because it doesn't matter. I'll get it done. Or I'll find somebody to do it. It'll get done. That's what we do. Okay? And you can trust if a red says yes, they'll get it done. They might find a blue to do it. Because the blues will get it done well and meticulously and in detail. So when he says that reds are the ones who get things done, it doesn't mean they're the ones who actually do it. What we may do is get blues to do it, but then a red can get 57 things done in the time a blue gets 1 thing done. Because I can go find 57 blues and get things going, or other reds, and they'll find somebody to help them get things done or whatever it is. Through delegate, but we can get much more done and be more effective that way. Okay? And so this is kind of understanding some of the limitations. So we can be insensitive. We're very blunt and to the point. Yes, we can say something. I wouldn't have said something like, well, you're fat. But we do things similar to that. And then when the person goes, well, thanks a lot for pointing that out, I say, oh, so now you got a different problem. Like, well, you don't think you're fat? Okay. So let's see. We do have a problem with having to be right. And so do the blues, but from a different perspective. So sometimes people get the blue and the red confused. So I'm going to kind of sometimes mention the blues with the reds because they can be confusing. Because if you looked at a circle chart and drew quadrants out of it, okay? The 2 top quadrants would be your red and your blue. So if you're looking like a clock, okay, so like from 9 o'clock to midnight, that would be red. From 12 to 3 would be blue. Because they're both on the top because they have certain similarities. Both need to be in charge for different reasons. Or at least both seek to be in charge for different reasons. They got that similar. Okay? Then on the blue side, going from 3 to 6, you have the yellows. Blues and yellows have a much more relational, social aspect to them. Okay? So they have some commonality with that kind of thing. They're much more comfortable with intimacy and relationships and that kind of thing. Not exactly in the same way, but that's a common thing they've got. And then on the bottom, going across over from 6 to 9, you've got the whites. And so the whites and the yellows have a lot in common also in terms of the fact that they try not to deal with stress. They don't really get hung up on a bunch of stuff. They don't like drama. So there's a lot more peace going on down there. Okay? And then on the white-red side, you've got much more logic. There's not a lot of emotional distress and stuff, where the blues and the yellows get more they're more emotion-driven, even if it's a positive emotion, okay? So there's commonalities there, all right? Some of you just thought I got Catholic for a second. Okay. Okay? Reds, yellow, whites. Now I'm conducting. Okay. Okay? See, I got to have some yellow in this. Now, and so picture that there are going to be some things that sound similar between certain colors. Okay? All right? To get things done, you want the people on the top of the quadrant, your reds and your blues. Your whites and your yellows, not so good at that. Okay? They're great at other things, so please, we're focusing on some limitations here. Okay? Yellows can't be bothered if it's not fun. Whites want to do it their own way in their own time. Leave me alone. Okay? I'll get it done. Okay? Where the reds and the blues say, I need it off my list yesterday. Well, reds probably don't have a list, but the blues do. Okay? The blues have lists to keep track of their lists. All right. Okay, now, but the reds do try to get things done and try to get and work that out. Okay, so this idea of having to be right. So reds have this thing about being right. Blues do too, but from a totally different perspective. They're going to kind of deal with things when they come together. Reds need to be right, as in like literally right, like provable, logically right. This is correct. Okay, blues know they're right through their own unique way of seeing the world, and they don't need you to ever agree with them. It doesn't matter. They're just right. Okay? All the blues are going, well, yeah, of course. Okay? So, but they don't understand why you don't see it. Well, why don't you see it? It's so obvious. I mean, that's wrong, and this is right. And to a blue, there's always a right way and a wrong way to do everything. To a red, we just want to get it done. I'm open to anyhow. I don't care how you get it done. Okay? So a red's asking a blue about something like, well, okay, actually the blue comes to red and said, this is the way we need to do this. And the red says, that's great. What about this? Can we do this? Would that work also? The blue goes, what? I just told you how we need to do it. And the red says, yeah, but will this work? Is there an alternative? See, the alternative focus is hard for the blue. Whereas the red can miss that there's actually a right and wrong thing, and maybe doing it just any old way will actually cause a problem. So we have to balance those things, okay? Reds and blues have also that same thing with being in charge, being in leading. So sometimes you might think, well, I'm always finding myself leading a bunch of stuff, end up in charge, so I must be red. Well, maybe. Why? It's a motivator. What you want to understand is what's motivating your getting in charge. What's motivating your seeking peace. I seek peace a lot because I'm trying to accomplish something that might need peace. Not because I'm white, okay? A white just wants peace, period, okay? I will only want peace if that's what's needed for the situation. Sometimes conflict is needed to get to where we need to go because something has to be pushed through and not avoid just so that we avoid conflict, all right? So the reds are going to have some of those problems. They are relentless and impatient, okay? There's a relentlessness to the red. That's good in some times. It's not so good in other times. Sometimes they don't know when to quit. Okay, just quit. Let's call the plumber. Let him do it. Okay, you already destroyed the bathroom, and But I mean, you have to just understand your limitations there. And we are very impatient. Okay, so you could be talking to me. I'll use me as an example because I'm probably the strongest red in the room, except maybe one other person. Okay, as far as the percentages. If I'm talking to you, if I look bored, I'm not bored. I'm just trying to figure out, is there ever going to get to something that I can fix or make happen or accomplish? Otherwise, I'm trying to figure out, how can I get out of this to go to the next thing? It's not personal. But if you just need an ear, go find a blue or find a white. They're great listeners. Okay? But don't find a red if you just need someone to listen to you. Now, us reds, we need to learn to listen. Yahweh did a great, wonderful work on me. He made me counsel people. 10 hours a day. And then because I am trying to get everybody across the finish line, I show up here and voluntarily give you guys 3 nights, I give you like 15 hours of time you can come and counsel with me. Well, I could have had all that time to myself. But then I wouldn't accomplish anything. And people like to come up to me and say, but Rabbi, did you schedule in time for yourself? I don't want time for myself. I want to get things done, and this is what I need to get done, is help you any way I can get where you're going. So that's why you see the relentlessness of me working. Okay? And the people, what was that? I appreciate that. Okay, so I appreciate that. Okay, now, so understand that the impatience is nothing personal. By the way, with reds, we take almost nothing personally. Almost. I mean, because remember, you're not a pure red, you have other colors. So when you get something from us, recognize that we don't intend it to be personal. Okay? So red's in an argument with you, and we get into a big, we're blasting about. The red is not likely to call you all kinds of names as much as a blue would, because the blue wants it to hurt. Oh, I'm not picking on them. They know. Oh, they know. They do it because they want it. They want that. They know exactly what button they're pushing. Okay? The red's just screaming. The red's just loud and screaming. The blue is about to throw some little bombs and say, knowing it's going to make the red turn into a nuclear bomb. And then the blue goes, well, why are you screaming? I don't know, honey, because you pushed the nuclear bomb button. Okay. Okay? I want to make sure how much time we've got so I can also do blue. We're going to do red and blue today. Okay. There's also a competitive nature and a bold nature, which can be good, but it could also be bad. Okay? It's not fun to play with the reds sometimes because they will need to win. And so if you want to play just to have fun, not probably a bunch of reds to play with should you be doing. No, it's not going to be this fun. Get yourself a bunch of yellows. Nobody's going to even be paying attention to who wins or loses and what the rules are, and just who cares. Okay? We're just having fun. All right? My brother used to drive me crazy. He's kind of blue, white, blue, something like that. And we would play cards. We play like, if you don't know how to play, like spades and that kind of thing. So we play this team thing, right? 2 people against 2 people. There I am. Look, I'm Catholic again. All right. So we play this, we're teams, right? So I need him to be playing as a team to win. And he's paying half attention to what's going on and the cards people are throwing or whatever's going on. And I'm like, look at him like, and he's like, why? We're just having fun. I'm like, no, we're trying to win. That's what makes it fun. Crushing them. Why don't you understand that? The game has a purpose. There's a winner and a loser. It doesn't say, let's just play to have fun. Otherwise, nobody would win. That would just be fun. Okay. So, very competitive. We can turn anything into competitive. Okay? Very competitive. But because of that, it's not always fun. And I can give you an example. My family, often on a Friday night, if we have people over, will want to bring out some Bible games to play, to test Bible knowledge and things like that. But it's still a game. But it's appropriate for Shabbat because it's always about Scripture and that kind of thing. And invariably, they'll want me to play. And I always say no, and then I go to my office and work on the sermon or something like that. And so they twisted my arm one time to play. And I said no. And they don't understand the reason I'm saying no is because I'm going to play to win and you won't like it. And so we played the Bible game. And when I finished and everybody was only 3 spaces from the start, they all looked at me. I said, I told you. Now can I go to the basement? They don't invite me anymore. Which is what I told them in the first place. Okay? But my children will also tell you I never let them win when they played as children. If they're going to play, they're going to learn how to play by watching me beat them and learn how to do that. My daughter is fantastic at this Mancala game with the stones. Does anybody know that game? Okay, so she plays this game because my mother, her grandmother, taught her the game, and my mother's the same way. She's not red, but she doesn't let you win, okay? She wants you to, she's going to play the game because she's more blue, there's rules, she's going to play according to rules and try to win. And so my daughter's gotten great at the game because of learning from someone who is better than her. So I don't tend to let people win like that. But anyway, but it's not fun to play with somebody who's too competitive. So I've learned to just not play unless I'm going to be playing with others who understand and can handle competitiveness. You played cards with me. You've seen what it looks like. Okay, she goes, I loved it. Okay? Yes, but when the partner I had did not play up to par, we put him to bed. Okay, good night, you're done, go. Okay. All right, let's see. Relentless and patient. Okay, so we're going to look at some of the other limitations here. Let's see. Here we go. As a friend. Okay, these are some limitations that a red would have as a friend. They're insensitive and unemotional. By unemotional, that means that we don't react emotionally the way you might want us to. We don't have the emotions. Generally, we do not let the emotions grab the steering wheel. Okay? Unless you finally pop the cork and anger takes over. That's the one emotion that we generally have trouble keeping away from the steering wheel as a red, okay? Now, doesn't like to admit they need friendships, remains detached from sharing self completely, enters friendships asking what's in it for me. In other words, everything has to accomplish something. So it's not just what's in it for me, like selfishly, like, is there something and a reason for me to be in this relationship that I can benefit from and it's going to accomplish something? Listens only when convenient, maintains mostly rational relationships. So please don't be offended. We're not trying to say all the people we don't want to have relationships are irrational, even though they are. Okay. Tries to control group activities. Okay, now again, understand that when we do try to control group activities, so if you put us in a group, we will normally try to take over, but it won't look like we're trying. We'll just take over and we'll just start leading because that's what we do. But because we think we can lead and get things to be accomplished more readily. But I can tell you that in my experience, I did years and years ago, I was in a singles group, a singles event when I was in Worldwide Church of God, and we were back in the days before I had met my wife, and we all went to a retreat area for a singles weekend thing, right? And so to help us get to know each other, they did like these activities and contests where we had to do team-related things. And they broke us up into teams and did like some sort of competition. And so I got in the group and I determined I was not going to lead. I was not going to take over the group. I was going to let anybody else lead. And we all stood around staring at each other until finally they all looked at me and I took over. Because there were no reds in the group. Okay? And so we inevitably end up in leadership. Because that's what we are designed to do. Okay? But it can look like we're trying to take over. And sometimes it is. People, some of the negative side of the red can, like the negative red trying to go across the finish line and not drag you with them but kick you to the curb. That can happen too. Because now victory at all costs. They don't care. As long as I win, I don't care if you lose. That's a bad red. Okay? Bad red. Okay. Expects friends. Let's see. Impatient with others. Negative, critical, judgmental. That could be for both reds and blues. Feels it's more important to be right than agreeable. That's a big problem. Because you can lose friends, and I've lost many over trying to say, well, but I was right, and this is really a problem. We should seek to be agreeable and then work the other things out. But reds don't usually care about that too much. Blunt, rude when angered. What could be blunt, rude even when we're not angered? No, we can. We can just be blunt and rude, period. Expects to be, no, that's not, okay, stubborn. Yeah, reds can be pretty stubborn. Denies any personal inadequacies or responsibility. Let's see. Can be arrogant. Okay, so they not only can be arrogant, but can look like they're arrogant even if they're not being arrogant. So they really can be, or we can appear to be. So you got to be careful with that, because some of you may just think, oh, that guy's just cocky and arrogant. Well, maybe. Or maybe they're just actually confident, competent, and capable, and you're not used to seeing that. okay? Because we have a lot of that problem. Because can we all admit that there's a very big chasm of lack of competent, capable, and, okay? And competent, capable, and functional things. Okay, and especially in leadership. Poor listeners. We're awful listeners. Okay? Lacks sensitivity. Hides insecurities. Okay, how can you develop a positive connection with the Reds? Present issues logically. Okay, this is now to talk to you, not Red. For the rest of us Reds, look, we just need to really take a step back and go, how do we get from A to B while treating people with the fruit of the Spirit? How's that? Okay? We have to get them from A to B. We have to accomplish our task, but how do we do that maintaining the love, joy, peace, patience, etc.? And we struggle with several of those 9 aspects pretty big, okay? Especially patience, all right? Okay, you want to have the most miserable time? Go shopping with a Red. They do not want to be there. They want to get it in 5 seconds and get out the door. I'm shopping with my wife. I went to get a shirt. I found a shirt. I want to leave. She said, whoa, we just got here. I got the shirt. My wife has learned that when we do go shopping, because I try, when she just wants to go and do, but at some point during that moment, I'll look at her in the eye and go, I'm done. And she's learned that means we're leaving now. I gave you an hour, whatever it is, 2 hours. I did the best I could, reached my limit. Okay? So we now know what that, I'll look at her and I say, I'm done. I say it nicely, and she'll understand that means that's it for today. Okay? Because it's really hard for us Reds to window shop. Hey Reds, how many of you love window shopping? Nobody. Okay? Okay? Because it doesn't accomplish anything in our minds. There's no joy or fun in it. If I shop, I want to buy it. Okay? I'm going to come home with it. That's why I went. I'm not going to window shop. Okay? All right. Demand their attention and respect. Okay? So you want their attention? We don't get it. Look, you got to remember, if you're blue, okay? Because this is where we have the hardest 2 colors together, red and blue. Okay? Which is why I have a lot of challenge with most of you, because we got a lot of blues. And I can rub you all the wrong way because you think I'm going to react the way you would react. So if you can't, so I don't want to demand his attention. He may get all upset. No, I'm not. Just come and do. Don't project into me. I'm not blue. I have 0 blue. Okay? It's okay to come and demand my attention. And try to, hey, excuse me, I'm trying, and get my attention. Okay? And also demand respect. Be like, hey, hello, but don't do it because you're angry. Just get the attention and bring it to my attention. But if you're already angry and upset or hurt in your feelings, whatever, now we're going to have a problem because I'm going to look at you like, stop acting like a baby. That's just a red reaction. It doesn't mean you're really being a baby. But to me, I'm like, you let the emotions grab the wheel. There wasn't any need to do that. You could have just said, hey, I'm over here, pay better attention, whatever it is. You will not offend the Red to do that. Okay? Do your homework, which is going to mean, so if you're going to deal with a Red, you should know what you're talking about and not come just, kind of unprepared. Be direct, brief, specific in your conversations. Key word there, brief. Be productive and efficient. Offer them opportunities for leadership. Verbalize your feelings. I like that. Verbalize your feelings. Don't write them down. Don't have us guess. Speak clearly. Okay? A lot of you, because of your styles, and again, I'm not picking on anybody. We're picking on the Reds now as far as we can try to do. But to help us, if you want to help a Red understand you, don't hint. Well, he should know what I'm feeling. No, we don't. Come right out and just tell me. I'll walk up to my wife. What's wrong? Nothing. Well, ladies, because almost all the ladies have blue by default. It's kind of, the men were supposed to be, I think, from creation red as a default, and the ladies blue. And they needed, those are important relationships for the men to be red and the women to be blue. But they also are the hardest combination to make work. Okay? And we'll get into the blue, you'll understand why. Because now that you understand the red, when you understand the blue, you'll see why they have a hard time. It's not the blue's fault, I'm just saying why they have a hard time. But they have to be willing to see the security issues, the insecurity issues, the emotions, the fears that blues have them unable to go up to a red and be direct. Because they're afraid. Okay? Okay. I'm barely 5 foot, whatever, 5 or something, and I scare people. That's ridiculous. People tell me, but Rabbi, you scare me. Why? Okay. Support their decisive nature, promote their intelligent reasoning where appropriate, be prepared with facts and figures, respect their need to make their own decisions their own way. Okay, don't. These are your don'ts. And then we're going to switch and go over to the blues, okay? These are your don'ts. Don't embarrass them in front of others. Don't argue from an emotional perspective. Don't argue from an emotional perspective. That is probably the worst thing you could possibly do. Not worse because it'll anger or mess up the red, but it'll accomplish nothing. You will never get what you want arguing from an emotional perspective with a red. Okay? Always use an authoritarian approach. These are things that don't do. Don't always use an authoritarian approach with a red. Don't be slow and indecisive. Don't expect a personal and intimate relationship. Don't attack them personally. Don't take their arguments personally. And don't wait for them to solicit your opinion. And also, don't just give your opinion unless they wanted it. Be careful with that. Okay? Kind of figure out first if they want an opinion. Don't demand constant social interaction. Allow for alone time for them. Okay, so reds like the whites. Remember, they're on the same side of the chart. They do like to be by themselves occasionally. Okay? And so some of you will notice that, for example, I sit by myself because most of you don't think to invite me to sit with you during lunch or dinner or whatever, but I like to be sitting with just my wife or myself, eat my food, be unbothered, because I'm going to do all this other social stuff, work stuff, all the rest of the time. Okay? My family knows Saturday night, when I go home, leave me alone for about an hour. I've just done a full week of work, including an all-day Sabbath thing with people, and it's all about that reds are always being pulled because we're needed. Fix this, help me with that, fix this, help me with that. We need that time when nobody needs us. Okay? So when you heard me talk excitedly back in November about the cruise I was going on, because the rules on the cruise was, and this included my family, nobody is to need me. You can do whatever you want, leave me alone. Okay? I'm going to sit by the ice cream machine and read. And I did. Actually, I was near enough to the whole thing, but I just, leave me alone. You could sit and talk to me. We did have a couple of conversations because I was with some of the people from the ministry where we talked business, we talked ministry, we talked planning. That was fine, because I solicited that. But don't need me to fix you understand what I'm saying? I need that time. So know that all your reds need that time. They need the time, just let them figure out. Let them figure out, let's ask the red, I know what'll be good. Let's ask the red to go downtown and let's ride bicycles and look at nature. Wait, that didn't work. There you go. Because that'll make the red feel so much better. Just gonna let's go for a walk through the park No. Okay? Now, of course, if your red has enough other colors that might be just fine. But the pure of that red, no, that's not gonna work. Let the red just have a space, figure out what makes him happy or her happy, to do what they need to do, to unwind and detox and get ready to hit the next project with everything. Okay? And that's kind of where it's at. Okay, let's see. Here are some, let's see, I think that's enough of that. Okay, let's go over now to, it's 4:30, so that's good. So let's go switch over to the blues. Okay, there's a blue there with some yellow in them. Okay, you went, woo. Okay, where are our blues? Okay, hands down. Actually, let me do this with the reds. How many reds your percentage was, but your still was red, was under 40%? A few, so so you're not super strong reds, okay? How many of you, it was between four, it was over 40%, over 50%, over 60%. Still got 4 or 5 of them, over 70%. We got some reds, over 80. What was yours, Gary? Oh, you're same as mine. And what was yours? 93. Good job, Dan. Now, of course, the competitive part of me goes, I thought I was the top dog here. Yeah, but you probably got 3 colors, though. There you go. So you actually have 4 colors. Look at him. You got some yellow too, right? So you got, no? Okay, 0 yellow. So you got 3 colors. Oh, I know that already about you. He says I'm no fun. Okay. All right. Okay, so at least I got him on the 2-color thing. No. Actually, that's not a great thing to be like, I won on being like incomplete. Okay, there you go. I'm more incomplete than you are. I feel good about that. No. Okay. Now the blues. Okay, so how many blues are over 30%? Over 40%? 50%? 60%? 70%? Nobody. Go back with the 60 percenters. What's your percents? 62. Ian? You raised your hand, didn't even know what your color number was. Well, oh, you were wrong, 53, okay. Michelle, you win. Okay. Now, let's talk about the blues. Okay? Can we get the blue video up? Let's get the blue video up real quick.
Okay, let's talk about blues. What makes a blue? Well, first of all, blues are driven by intimacy. Into me, you see. They are so connected. They're very emotional. Even those who don't show their emotions, they're driven by emotion underneath. So understand that blues are very solid personality. They're like the polar bears. They don't run away from issues. They are standing fierce in what they believe. They're a truly oxymoronic individual. Let me tell you why. Blue people are the most caring, giving, loving, committed, connected kind of person you're ever going to find. But they can also be the most autonomous, independent, judgmental, self-righteous person you've ever met. So you can imagine the vast array of the blue that we deal with in terms of blue personalities. Let's talk about just a few of the strengths and a few of the weaknesses so you understand them better. So blue personalities are very compassionate. They really do care about how people feel. They think about them. They worry about them. They offer to help them. They care deeply about other people. In fact, for a blue, making others happy and making others fulfilled is more important than their own happiness. Blues are also very sincere. You want a relationship with a blue? You must be sincere. They have this intuition that is uncanny. They just get a sense of whether you're legitimate or you're not. And if you're not legitimate, they have a very hard time. Now, the blue beats themselves up. They always say, well, I'm being too critical, I'm too judgmental. But if they're a healthy blue, almost 100% of the time, they're correct in their assessment of other people. Blues are so sincere, however, hard to tell a joke. Because when you tell a blue a joke, they're always like, well, that couldn't work. That couldn't have made sense. That didn't happen. I'm like, it's a joke. It doesn't have to make sense. It's just funny. So they can get kind of stuck in being so sincere all the time as well. And blues, by the way, have a hard time getting around somebody who's not sincere. They have a hard time working with someone they don't feel they can trust. It's a big issue for a blue personality. Blues are very genuine. They don't lie. A red will lie because they already took care of it. There's no reason to dig it up again. The white will lie because they don't want conflict. It's not worth the conflict. I'll just change. The yellow will lie because they forgot what they told you the first time. But a blue that lies, you have a sick puppy. That's a real challenge. That's just not the nature of who they are at all. And so when there's a blue that's a liar, you have much more damage going on inside than you might think. They're very obedient, by the way. Blue people believe rules are there to make society better, and they would like everybody to obey them on their terms. They live by shoulds. Now we're getting into some of the negatives. They live in a should world. You should do this, you should do that. Therefore, we should also. And I'm going to write a country western song someday for all the blues of the world that says, take your blues and shove them. Because it's not fair to expect all of us to live life on your terms. Blues also, they personalize everything, which causes them to worry all the time. Nobody plans better, schedules better, is more prepared than a blue. And yet, nobody worries more about all the worst things that can happen. So they carry that trauma with them. They probably suffer more medically than any other color in terms of stress, because they carry things in their head and their heart much longer than they should. Blues are emotionally intense. It's just hard to deal with a blue on a constant basis when they're always upset about something or struggling. Like, you want them just to lighten up. My favorite thing for blues is lighten up, which drives them crazy when I say that. But the reason I'm saying that is because you're making it hard on everybody, including yourself. Blues have a hard time forgiving themselves, forgiving others. Why would somebody have done that? How could I have done that? They're very, very demanding of perfection. Do it the right way. That's not the human experience. We make mistakes. Life is not perfect, and blues struggle to accept that. Blues will always want, at the end of the day, a connection. But it's interesting, by the way, a lot of blues like to shop alone because they know what they want to do and where they want to go. A lot of blues want to do their job on their own terms, not with a group, because if the group doesn't do it right or quality, they're not interested. Their name is tied to everything they do, so that quality and perfection can become a strength or a limitation. Blues are so intense, they're so unique in that they are emotion driven, they bring out the best of the best, or they can truly be the worst of the worst if they play to their negatives. Blue you are, 35% of the world is blue, which speaks well as to why we are able to survive together, but it also shows you how many people struggle when there's inequity in the world, unkindness, lack of goodness, lack of morality. That's the blue world for you. So how did you like today's video? Thumbs up, thumbs down?
Okay, so let me start off with a very important thing. I don't hate blues. Some people have thought all the time that I have this thing against blues. I don't. I think that what you will find is that the blues have all of the best and also a lot of the worst possible things all wrapped into one person, which is why they struggle quite a bit in their lives, because they have all this stuff going on inside of them, and a lot of it conflicts. And so what makes the blues so challenging is that emotional part. Okay? They're very emotionally intense, like you said, they're very emotionally driven. And so that can be very good when it's focused in a way that's effective. And they're saying, I'm talking as a red talk, in an effective way, relationally, whatever it is that you're trying to have. But it can be very, very much a problem, because you will tend to be, the blues tend to have the insecurities, the fears, the doubts, the worries, more than the other three colors. Okay? And that's really debilitating at times. It's very, it takes away your energy, it takes away your growth and your motivation, because you're spending all of your energy worrying or in fear or in insecurity. And that's really a hard time for the blues. The challenge also for the blues is that the blues are the color of all of the colors that they need people to do it their way, or the world to be a certain way. So they tend to be the one that is the most invasive. They will come and enter your situation or your stuff or your space uninvited more than the other colors. The yellow might just do it because they just happen to stumble onto you, laughing, giggling, and fall into you. But the blues are actually doing it because something you're doing is wrong in the way they see it, and they need to come and impose that. Okay, so blues, you need to recognize that that is why you struggle so much, is because you can't get the world to be the way you want it to be. And accepting that is the hard part, okay? Now, I wish I could embrace a lot of the positive strengths of the blues, because the blues can sit with you and talk with you, and they do intensely, genuinely care about people, where the reds don't in that way. Okay, not that we don't, we care for, we provide, we do, but we don't care for people the way a blue does. A blue will make you feel way more cared for than a red will, even if a red's trying to do similar things for you. But the blue will do it in a way that has warmth, that makes you feel loved and feel cared for, okay? But on the other side of it, they're the ones that, if the world is not the way it should be, according to the way they see it, and that doesn't mean they're wrong. I mean, just as it's not the way, because even if they're right, they will try to impose. They're the ones who come up to me to try to get me to change the way I do things, because, after all, it's not comfortable for them for me to do it a different way. And so that's where the red and blue struggle is, for the reins, for the authority. The reds want to be in charge because we feel we can get it done more effectively than anybody. That doesn't mean we can. That's just what we feel, right? The blues want to be in charge because if they're not in charge, something wrong will happen. Something will go bad. Can you understand that, blues? Okay? And so that's where a lot of the usurping comes from the blues in a marriage. Well, why won't you let your husband lead? Well, because he's going to screw it up. So what? Do you know that if you let him screw it up and he fixed it, that would be less emotionally draining and less stressful than all the worry you have thinking he might screw it up, and all the fighting you have because you usurped and took it away from him? But that's hard to see because you're emotionally blinded. Okay? And I'm very, I have zero blue, but I'm surrounded by that. Okay? And it's the most challenge that I have, is because the blues, if the whites are having a problem, I may never know about it. They're not going to say a word. They're not going to come and talk about it. They're much more private. Okay? So the blues are ones that I get to be more aware of generally. And so so please don't take it wrong, but this is something I'm very familiar with. So when we talk about the blues, I want you to understand that I love you blues. If I want to get something that's detail-oriented done and all the details done right, you will do that. If we're having blues, like for the ladies that were helping, or anybody was helping cut the craft materials out for the children, the blues are going to make sure they cut around the lines perfectly and everything is right. And if they miss, they're going to want to get another one and replace it. Okay? The red is going to just get them done as quickly as possible and hope it's good enough. Okay? The white is not necessarily going to do it in a sloppy way or in a good enough way, and maybe do it like the blue, but don't make me do it on a schedule. Just give me what you want done, and I'll get it done eventually. That's kind of just throwing those out there so you can understand. So with the blues, okay, and we're going to talk about this as we get to their struggles and stuff, is that there's the pluses and the minuses. Like I said, with the red, we can be competitive, but that's good and bad. Well, with the blues, they're perfectionists. Okay? They are perfectionists, and that could be good and bad. It's good to be a perfectionist, but also because you're a perfectionist, you are going to be hardest on yourself. The blues are the ones who are most concerned that they're not going to make it into the kingdom. Okay? Not because they're doing anything to actually not make it, but they're the ones who are most concerned about it. They're the ones who are so hard on themselves that they're afraid they've screwed it up so bad they're not getting in. They're the ones who are also afraid for everybody else getting in because they care so much. Okay? But it's about perfection. The blues see things very black and white. It's right or it's wrong. There's not a lot of shades in there. Okay? Good enough is not really a blue term. Okay? Being flexible, not really a blue trait. But recognize that when you deal with them, that's a struggle for them. And you blues recognize that you have to learn to be flexible. Okay? You have to learn to adjust. Okay? Here's a typical blue reaction to something, so you can kind of understand. The blues will understand this perfectly. My wife is very blue, very red. We go out and have an incredibly productive day. We come home and she's upset. I go, what's the matter? She goes, we didn't get anything done today. I go, what do you mean? We did this, but none of it was on my list. You get that, Blues? But we did, yeah, but those are just things that popped up, but they weren't on the list. I had a list and I didn't get anything on my list done. This was an awful day. Right? Okay? That's not everybody that way, but that's a typical reaction. Okay, that's where that blue is coming from. They're very organized, schedules, things. So if they make schedules and plans and you mess them up, they will mess you up. One way or the other. But they're great at schedules and things like that. But of course, if you're a blue and you've got a white or a yellow child who doesn't know what schedule means, can't spell it, has no idea, you will be frustrated. Okay? The yellow's too distracted and the white just is too independent to really want to be on a schedule. Now, the red may also drive you crazy because the red's going to be jumping from priority to priority, which will also mess up the schedule. Because I need to accomplish something, but then something more urgent came up that I have to accomplish that now, which messed up the schedule. Okay? Which is why he said and we're going to keep throwing the negatives of all the colors in as we kind of fit them in there. Remember when he said about the reds, one of the things that we don't like about reds is that reds will sometimes not make you feel like you're very important because they show up late or something else because they put something else as more important. Now, on a real scale, logically, that may have been the right thing to do. It doesn't make it feel less offensive that they didn't put you first. But if they sat there and got to talk about it, you may have recognized, oh, well, that really was more important. But if you're blue especially, that affects your trust. Loyalty, big issue for the blues. Like top. If you do anything to mess with the blues' loyalty, you will have a hard time getting it back. If you breach trust with the blue, it's over. Blues, you got to figure out a way to have it not be over. All right? Wife and I are at a timeshare presentation. Okay? And we actually were going to buy it. Because we really did want one. We have friends who actually have one. So, some people do well with them. And we're getting to the end where they're going to pop the champagne and we're going to sign the contracts and everything. And that's when they decide to let her know about the maintenance fee. And you don't do that to a blue. You don't slip something in at the last minute that they weren't expecting. Blues do not like surprises. Surprise gifts, yes. But surprises, no. They like things planned, predictable. Right, Blues? Amen. Planned and predictable and things to go as expected. Okay, how many of you have your schedule with you? Okay, how many of you are blue? Almost everybody whose hand is up. Okay? Because that's what she just showed me her schedule. The blues have their schedules, know what's on the schedule, and they're planning and following these things. Okay? And she's got it on her phone, ready to go. Okay? But it's almost all the hands that went up are blues. Because they understand schedules and keeping things on time and those kind of things, task-oriented. Okay, blues are very good at being task-oriented. Now, but understand, so we're at the timeshare thing, and they snuck this thing in, and my wife looked at me like, we're done. And so I'm a sales guy, I was a sales trainer, sales manager, I understand sales. So naturally, they do what's called a TO or a takeover, where they get the Top Gun salesman to walk in to try to save the deal. I say, excuse me, come with me for a minute. And I walk away from my wife, and I say, you have to understand, I still want the deal, but this ain't happening. You breached a trust, we're done. Let's drink the champagne and go home. I didn't want the drama of him trying to change my blue angry woman, because she's now mad. They've breached her trust, and she's hurt, and she's disappointed, and she's upset. Because she wanted this thing. And I went to the guy and explained, I would have bought it, even with the maintenance fee. I said, but there's no way this is happening. I'm the red now trying to explain calmly to this guy who's going to try. I said, you're wasting your time. It is over. Okay? But the blues all know what I'm talking about. But see, you can also do this in relationships, and that's not necessarily a good thing. Somebody can mess up, and then you're done with them, instead of giving them that opportunity. Now, the problem is also, now tell me if this is not true, blues, okay? Let's say, and I'm using a visual here for people that are online watching, okay? So let's say the maximum relationship and trust and everything you could have with somebody is where my hand is right now. And let's say that person breached your trust, but you still have the relationship. Is this not now the new highest it's going to get? It's gone down, hasn't it? In other words, it'll never get to here again, because that has now damaged something that can't be fixed, unless you can learn to get past that. But your default, I'm saying, has now lowered the maximum relationship. The best, this is where blues in a marriage can really struggle, because if the husband messes up or the wife messes up, whichever one is not the blue, or if they're both blue, it could go either way, the new best possibility is now lower than it should have been. It's now been lowered, and the best they could ever accomplish is now a lower place. And let's say it gets hurt again, it goes even lower than that. And so this is a negative that you blues have to recognize, that you have to be more careful about, because you've now diminished the possibility of the thing really working and being great. Because after all, with you, opposite of the reds where nothing is really personal, everything is personal. Did you catch when he said in there that it's because anything that happens that you're even remotely connected to, it has your name on it, so it represents you, and you have to look good? Because one of the scariest things to a blue is that somehow they will experience some sort of public shame or embarrassment. Okay, you want to mess up the blues? Do something in public to embarrass them. That will take your thing right down. Okay? Bad enough if it happens at home, but you do it in front of somebody? Not good. Not good. The red's doing it wherever he's doing it, because the red doesn't care. The red's focused on that moment, doesn't care if anybody's watching, doesn't care if it's in the public, doesn't care where it's at if it's the red is like, I'm dealing with this now, and that's not good either. Because the red lacks awareness of where they are situationally when they have to deal with something. And so if the red is with the blue, now we got a double disaster. The red's doing it where they shouldn't, and the blue is saying, you're doing this now, I'm embarrassed. People are now going to see me in a certain way, or they're worse than that, because they love you so much, the blue is now thinking that people are going to think bad of you and connect you to them, and now they're going to wonder why you married them and everything else. Well, people are going to say, well, how could you marry somebody who acts like that and treats you like that in public? You know what? This is why we have such a struggle. Is this making sense to everybody? Is this worth it so far? You understand? Okay? We struggle because we have this stuff going on. Okay. The perfectionist thing is very tough. The next part of it is also they're highly demanding. So they set the bar very high, higher than any other color. And they expect not only themselves to get to that bar, but everybody around them. And you will disappoint them, and they will have that emotional thing going again if you don't get there. And they're hardest on themselves. Okay? But they set that bar very high. So men, if you're married to a blue woman, or women, if you're married to a blue man, understand, they set a very high bar of expectation. They also have the biggest wants-needs disconnect. Okay? That's where he said they live in the world of shoulds. Because shoulds become musts to the blue. Okay? And so, if the blue thinks everybody should be A or B or doing something or not doing something, and they see someone doing it, this really bothers the blue. And then they'll go up to the red who's in charge or whoever's in charge and say, you need to make that person stop. Okay? And where the red was looking at, the red would be like, well, I wouldn't do that, but hey, it's their thing. And the white's just hoping nobody noticed it to make a big fight about it, and the yellow's like not even paying any attention. Or maybe thinks, hey, that looks fun, I might try it too. Okay? And that's where we're at with this. Very highly demanding. So I want the blues, I really want to work with the blues more than any other ones because you guys are suffering the most. Okay? Okay? Because of the way that you take things in and allow it to hurt you or get you in. Blues are the ones who get depressed more than any other color. Okay? They feel the emotional pain deeper than any other color. Now, these are also positives because they care the most. And and actually what he said is so true. The blue will, at their own detriment, put others first and go and do everything for others. As a matter of fact, they'll drive some of us crazy because they're doing everything they think to help you, even though you don't want it, so it's not helpful. But they just want to help you. Of course, they want to help you because it makes them feel better, so they're really helping themselves. So blues, you need to hear this. So listen now clearly. Some of the time, you're actually motivated by you, not you're helping the other person. You think, well, I did that to help you. No, you did it because you're afraid I'm either going to screw it up or you wanted to make sure I did it right or some other thing. So you're really helping yourself by helping me. Be careful. By me, meaning the person you're helping. It could be whoever that is. Because I've had that discussion with husbands and wives and things like that who are struggling. I said, you have to remember, well, I was just trying to help her or I was just trying to help him. But is that what he thought was helpful or she thought was helpful? Because let's put it this way, helpfulness is received in the eye of the receiver. Just because you thought it was helpful doesn't mean they thought it was helpful. Okay? You ever try to do that with a child that's first learning their independence and you want to help them and they smack you away, they want to do it themselves, and of course then they break it or whatever, but they want to do it themselves. But I want to help you. Well, sometimes you got to let them break it and figure it out that it doesn't work so that they can learn. Yeah, but if I don't help, something wrong is going to happen or something's going to get broken or it's going to go bad. That's okay, blues. It's okay. Not everything that goes wrong or goes bad or gets broken is that bad a thing. It maybe is a good thing. People learn from that. And if you ever want, especially for you blue ladies, if you ever want your husbands to really be what they need to be, you're going to have to let them mess up. You have to let them make mistakes. And you be their cheerleaders and not the ones going, see, I knew it. I knew you couldn't do that. That's why I wanted to take charge of it. Don't do that. They're self-disciplined and stable, which is great. Self-sacrificing, nurturing. But they also can be unforgiving and resentful. Okay, watch out for that. It's a big negative. That's a limitation there. It's very hard for a blue to release and forgive. Now, I mentioned this during lunch, and I wanted to mention it here again. So I'd asked somebody to remind me, but I just remembered it now anyway. Okay? We talked about this during the Midrash earlier. The idea of in the model prayer, it talks about if you don't forgive others, he doesn't forgive you. I want to make sure we're clear about one thing. Even if you forgive, that doesn't mean the pain has been completely healed, which means that something could trigger the pain. Now, Christianity would have told you, well, that's because you didn't really forgive. If you'd really forgiven, then that wouldn't hurt anymore. That's nonsense. Something can peel the scab off of it and expose it and make it hurt again. That doesn't mean, though, that you didn't forgive the person that caused the injury in the first place. So just recognize that. That's an important differentiation for all of us, no matter what color you are. That, yes, if you have truly tried to forgive, no matter how hideous it was that whatever somebody did to you, that doesn't mean that the pain automatically disappears. And it doesn't mean that that pain can't be triggered and be brought back to the surface. And hopefully most of you have experienced that each time it happens, it gets a little less, and you get a little bit better handle on it. Is that true? Okay, generally speaking, all right? But also it should remind you, if it does still hurt a lot or just as much as before, that maybe you need counsel to deal with the pain. Because if you've gotten counsel to deal with the pain, it should be diminishing to the point where it no longer has that hold over you, where it could be so easily triggered, or even if it's very rarely triggered, but just triggered and caused so much pain. Okay? But there's a healing process. That doesn't mean you haven't forgiven. Very important. But blues do have a trouble being forgiving. because they take it personally. Well, things happen around a blue. Blue's first thought is, you did that to me on purpose. You could have fixed it. You didn't care enough, whatever it is. Accidents don't happen around blues very much. Okay? They do, but they don't see them that way. Okay? Okay, blue wife, child behind me. We're walking, child behind me who I can't see, trips to fall. Wife looks at me and says, why didn't you catch her? Because the eyes in the back of my head were closed. Sorry about that. Do you understand blues what I'm talking about, right? Because to a blue, everything should be preventable. Yes or no? Okay? So, because it should be preventable, if you didn't prevent it, you're in trouble. Why didn't you prevent it? Why didn't you catch her? Because she was 5 or 8 feet behind me. I'm not the Flash. And my eyes back here were closed. Even if I'd been watching, I couldn't have stopped it. Okay? We were in a dark parking lot at night, leaving a restaurant, and my daughter tripped. As a teenager. And so I'm not even thinking I need to be watching her to fall. But this would also happen when they were really little. And so this is not picking on my wife. Okay? I'm just, because I know about a blue and I can use some stories instead of using your stories, okay? But understand that she cares so deeply, nothing bad should ever happen to anybody. They're always worrying about things bad happening to people, wanting to make sure nothing ever happens that goes wrong. And so there's a constant level of stress always riding in that background. And it's hard to just take a breath and let stuff go. Okay? So they're unforgiving and resentful. Because they can now hold it against you that you didn't stop that thing from happening. And start to resent. Okay? It's very, very hard. Worried and guilty. Okay, blues are your biggest worriers. Okay, reds don't worry because we're always confident we could fix it. Right, reds? My wife's like, do you know what you're doing? No. Well, what if you break it? I'll fix it. Okay? Okay. Blues, you guys are carriers. You bring worry around with you and want to infuse it in everybody else too. I'm worried. You need to be worried too. Come over here. I can give you an injection of worry. Okay? And guilty. Not that they're guilty, but they tend to feel guilty. I'm not doing enough. I didn't do enough. I'm a terrible mom. I'm a terrible dad. They beat themselves up. Don't do that. Okay, don't do that. Let's see. Moody and complex. There's the understatement of the year. Okay, sorry. Did I say that out loud? Because the blues are emotionally driven, their moods can swing in wide arcs. Okay? They could be at the best, happiest that you've ever seen somebody be. I'm not talking about like when the yellows are just losing their minds. What I'm saying is, but just generally happy. Okay? You watch the game shows and the yellows are the ones that are, just losing their minds. Okay? And the reds are like, you just won $300. Big deal. Going crazy. But if we're dealing with the blues, we have to know that they have mood swings because their emotions can roller coaster. I don't want to call them moody like as a negative thing, but they have such a wide range of strong emotion that it's like riding a roller coaster sometimes to kind of follow along because it can change so quickly. And there's a wide range. So I have empathy for that, but I had to recognize that. Instead of thinking, man, you're moody or something, I had to realize, no, you just have such strong emotions on such a wide spectrum. Some people might be strong on one end. The yellows are very strong on the over-exuberant. They're not as emotional on the other sides. The blues are strong emotion on all sides. And sometimes it's really great, sometimes it's not. And it can change like the snap. It can change on just a snap. And so we have to recognize, but you have to recognize too that that's hard for everybody around you. Okay? And that you have to work with that. And complex. Well, they're complex because they're trying to make sure that everything is right, and they're trying to balance their lives. They want to be the best worker and the best mom and the best in front of Yahweh and the best everything. Okay, I don't think that was in the book anywhere. Reds want to win. Blues want to be the best. They want to be the highest quality or standard. Not the best meaning that they get held up on a podium. They just want to be as good as can be at whatever they're doing. They want to do it well, quality. Is that right, Blues? Am I getting that? Okay? And so, because of that, they're very complex because they're trying to be the best at everything they do. They want to be great at it. They want to do it well. Now, they don't want to be recognized for how great they are. They want to be appreciated. Okay? They're not looking for the trophy that says, hey, you're the best. They want someone to walk over and give them a big hug and say, I so much appreciate the effort you put into that. You are the best mom. You're the best dad. You're the best, whatever blue thing you are. Okay? They can be self-righteous, and that's really a big problem because I don't want you to think of it from a religious point of view. Let's break the word down to simplicity. They want to be self-right. In other words, they see the world very clearly, more clearly than any of the other colors when it comes to morality, ethics, those kind of things. That's why the blue generally is not even thinking about lying. Lying doesn't make any sense to a blue. Of course, a white or a red can figure out there's a reason to lie to accomplish something. A yellow, like he said, might just forget what they said and not even know what's going on. When it comes to, like, not remembering that they got a 53 when they think they got over a 60. Well, what's your first color? Blue? And where's your yellow, though? How big? Well, he just did the test earlier, so he's not going to know. 15, okay? So that's enough right there. Is blue your biggest? All right. Okay? So now he didn't remember mostly because he just did the test. Once you've done the test for a while, it kind of you'll know and you'll never forget your numbers, right? Okay. Now, but bear in mind, this self-righteous thing has to do with that you are holding everybody in the world to your standard of right and wrong. You expect people to behave correctly, to do things right, but not right according to anybody's standard but yours. And I'm trying to make sure that that's received the right way. In other words, you clearly see right and wrong. And so, now that doesn't mean that your standard is unique to the whole world. I mean, you probably have standards that are very common for a lot of people and generally the ones that we all can agree on. But you also have your little nuances and shades of how they should be applied, that this is the right way to do it and this is the wrong way to do it. And so you can treat people in a very self-right way. I'm right, you're wrong type of way. So that's where the self-righteous thing comes into play. Does that make sense? Okay? So it's not self-righteous meaning I'm more righteous, like the Torah observant, whatever, than you. Okay? But it's the blues that may be more concerned with how somebody keeps a commandment. Because there's a right way to keep each commandment, and the blue sees that very clearly. And the red doesn't see it that way as much as the blue or the white or the yellow. So you can come across self-righteous. Okay? So I want to make sure I clarify that because it's not, I don't want it to necessarily be about your vertical connection. So that idea about self-righteous. Let's see. Insecurity. Blues are very insecure. They need to be constantly reaffirmed. Okay? But you got to recognize, you blues, that that's a problem for you, that you are so needy. Okay? The neediest color is the blue. Also, the most self-sufficient in some ways is the blue. See, that's the point. He said you guys are like oxymorons. Okay? You got this, you're complex. You want the world to believe that you completely have everything under control and you don't need anything, and at the same time, you're insecure about everything. And some of the blues are going, yeah, of course. What's wrong? Why is that? Why don't you understand that? Aubrey's like, yeah, okay. But as we deal with our blues, recognize that they're very insecure. You have to reassure them. The reds are like, oh, can't they just grow up? It's not a growing up thing. But to the red, it seems like you need to just grow up and not be so insecure. But it's not a maturity problem. It's really a personality style that they have a weakness in that area. Everybody's got weaknesses. Every color has its weaknesses. And so, the blues have more positives and more weaknesses than I think the other colors. That's what makes them so complex. That's why probably, like I said, 38% of the world is blue, the way he guessed it or whatever. I don't know where he did his survey, but that's more than 25%, which would be for each color, right? So it's a bigger number than the other colors would be. And that's, in some ways, causing the problems in the world. In some ways, it's the only reason the world is still around, because they care the most, but they're also infusing themselves and injecting themselves into stuff they don't belong in. So it's got that plus and that minus going on all the time. Okay? Also, as we kind of go through this, when it comes to control, remember we were talking about leadership-wise, the blues and the reds are fighting for control all the time. The reds say, if you just let me do it, it'll get done. Trust me, I'll take care of it type of thing. And the blues are like, but how do I know you're going to do it right? What do you got? I'll do it right. It'll get done. And so this is back and forth that's going on. I want us to also recognize this. There's a word that comes out of the blues' mouths a lot, and we have to be careful with it. You will tend to call anybody a controller. You're just a control freak. You just want to control everything. When really it's the blue that wants to. But as soon as the blue gets a no or is told they can't, then you're the control freak. Okay? Because I'm as a red being told that all the time. But I don't come over to involve myself in stuff that nobody came to me for. I don't need to control anything. I'd rather control nothing. Except whatever I have a responsibility and someone comes and asks me to do. But if you're in the way and I tell you not to do something or whatever's happening and I don't allow you to do it, the blue will call me a controller. Well, you're just a dictator control freak. Why? I tell you what, I allow total space for you to do what you want with whatever I teach you. Now, though, if I was blue, that wouldn't work. I would insist that you do it exactly the way I teach you. So you blues recognize that you tend to be the ones that are more controlling than any other color. Whites tend to be the ones that are the most wanting to not be controlled. Okay? So whites have the biggest issue with anything that feels, even hints like it's control. So that's why we have the whites and the blues dealing with those issues on the bottom of the chart, right? So blues and whites have a real problem with authority, with submission. For different reasons. Whites because they want to be independent. Their independence is so important to them. To the blue, it's not about independence. It's about if I submit to you and you do it wrong, now that's going to reflect on me. I'm going to look bad because you goofed off or you messed up or you didn't know what you were doing. So I can't just submit to you. It's a trust issue. The whites, it's not a trust issue so much from that point of view, it's an independence issue. I want to do what I want to do when I want to do it, leave me alone. Let's just have peace. Everybody just do their own thing and leave me alone. Okay? Okay. So that's really important because I have been accused by many, and I have zero blue, of being a control freak. I don't try to control anything. Now, if I'm doing something and you're involved in it, I may get in your face a little bit about, get out of the way or do this or do whatever. But I'm not going to come and infuse myself, inject myself, involve myself in something that I'm not invited to be involved in. The blues will do that, though. They will come right over and stick their nose in something because they see it, it's wrong, it needs to be fixed, or if I don't involve myself, it will go wrong. You understand what I'm saying, blues? Be careful with that, all right? And then if the red or whoever there says no or stops you, oh, you're just a control freak. Because they're not going to let you do what you want. That feels that way. So be really careful with that, all right? Okay, let's see what else. How much time do we have? Oh, we're doing really good here. Okay, so I have on the page here, so as a friend, they could be highly insecure about others' acceptance and approval. So when they're dealing with friends, they're always wondering, are they still my friend? Or if their friend is now spending more attention for a few minutes with somebody else, oh, they dropped me for them. there's always this wondering where you stand. There's always a sort of a worry about where my status is in a relationship. Where is my standing with you? So we have to always reassure our blues where they stand. Just always remind them, especially if you get the sense that they may look at you or be treating you a little different, something happened to mess. By the way, with some of the colors you might not know that something has gone wrong or changed. You'll know with the blue. You'll be able to sense that they are no longer treating you exactly the same. Something has happened, and their warmth will diminish. They might not treat you badly, but the level of that friendly warmth or whatever is going to be diminished. And that's when you need to realize, I did something to mess with their feeling of their status in the relationship. Guys, ladies, same thing, because I usually think of the blues as being more the ladies, okay? But if your spouse is blue, you better make them feel like they are number one in the center of your world. Because if anything elevates above them, you will lose that status. They will feel diminished in theirs, and they're going to make you feel it. You're going to pay for that. If you put a child over a mother, or a child over a father, a friend over a wife or a husband, or something, if you put anything that feels like it's above them, that whole thing starts to come right down. Okay? Feels rejected easily, okay, more than the reds or the whites or the yellows. When depressed or depressive, feels it's a friend's job to understand. Okay, blues, more than anything else, don't necessarily just want help. They want you to understand. They just want to be understood. Okay? All right? As a red, I don't care if you understand me. Just don't get in the way. Okay? And that doesn't make me right, and the blue's wrong. I'm just saying it's just a different thing. Okay? Can be revengeful and bitter if crossed or scarred emotionally. Okay, be careful if a blue gets crossed. Although just recognize that if you ever get the white to pop, that's the worst. You know the phrase going postal? Okay? Because the whites take an awful lot to pop. But if you get a white to pop, run. A red, we're just loud. You don't need to run from the red. We're just loud. Just kind of put earplugs in. We're not scary. We're not loud. You don't need to run. If you finally push the white over the limit, run. With the blues, if you push the blue over the limit, they will get vengeful. They will get bitter. You will pay. You will pay. Okay? Okay, blues can be critical of friends' principles or activities if not similar. Okay, blues are the most, of all the colors, the blues are most happy when you are like them. They are most uncomfortable when you're not. So the more you're not like them, the more they're not comfortable with you and will not want to spend as much time with you. Okay, because it's important for them, their expectation that the way that they see the world and the way people behave, the way people act and everything else, they should be the same. Okay? Expect their friends to maintain strong loyalty. I told you, loyalty is the biggest. If you do anything that makes that, especially if you're married, if you do anything to make your wife or husband feel like you have a loyalty issue, done. Okay? You are done. Wishes friends would communicate more often. Definitely not the red. That's the blue. Okay? Rarely playful and spontaneous. The blues don't like to get as spontaneous. They like to do things that are fun, but they'd rather plan it. Have an expectation for it. They're not big on, hey, let's just all run off and do something. But I'm not ready. I didn't plan for this. I got the wrong clothes. Whatever it is, okay? Where the red is like as spontaneous as it gets with the yellow. That's why the reds and yellows have a similarity to a certain degree. All right? Even though it's on a diagonal, that's the one kind of connection with the red and the yellows is that they've got the spontaneous part. Okay? There's a spontaneous connection there. Not that blues can't be, they would just prefer to plan everything. Okay? I want to have time to organize it and plan it and make sure I have everything I need for everything. And even stuff that I don't need just in case. Right? Okay. All right. And I lost the page I was on, so let me just find it again. That's whites, back to blues. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so how to develop the positive connection with the blues. These are things that you need to do. Okay? Emphasize their security in the relationship. So I said that already, right? Be sensitive and soft-spoken in your approach. This is why the reds and blues have a real problem, because the reds are not going to be sensitive or soft-spoken. We're going to be insensitive and loud. So that's what we have to learn to adjust to each other. If I'm dealing with a blue, I got to recognize I need to turn the volume down and turn the sensitivity up. Okay? Be sincere and genuine. You better be straight with your blues. Okay? Behave appropriately and well-mannered. By the way, that means, by appropriately, means the way they think it's appropriate. Appropriately is very much through the eyes of the blue. Okay? Am I wrong? Blues, am I wrong? No, okay. All right. Limit their risk level. If you're a red or whatever color you are and you're dealing with a blue and you want them to let you lead, you have to convince them that there's minimum risk and that if there is risk, that you are aware of it and you'll take care of it. You have to deal with their fears and insecurities and trust. Okay? All right. Promote their creativity. Appreciate them. That's the really biggest thing. All the blue wants it to be appreciated. All the red wants it to be respected. Okay? But the blue wants to be appreciated. 8, allow ample time for them to gather their thoughts before expressing themselves. Okay, red-blue relationship, my wife and I, something goes wrong, I want to fix it now. Because otherwise it's just going to get in the way of everything else I'm trying to do. And my blue wife says, I need time to process this. I'm not happy right now. Let me sleep on it. And then we end up, if I could slow down, of course I need her not to take 4 days, so I need her to speed up, right? So blues, do it as quick as you can. Reds, or whatever other color you are, let them have their time. Okay, let them process. They need time to gather their thoughts. Why? Because the emotions are clouding it in the beginning. They have to calm down or they can't see straight. They have the most volatile expression of emotion. Okay, their emotions can get very strong very quickly. So that has to calm down for them to see. Be loyal. And let's see. What don't you do? Don't make them feel guilty. They do enough of that to themselves. Okay? Don't add to that. All right? Don't be rude or abrupt. Okay, so for all you blues, I'm apologizing in advance. I am learning to do this better. At this feast site, I'm handling 75 things at the same time. You might not be aware of it. I'm also at a heightened level of awareness that I'm aware of everything happening in the space I'm in at the same time, which means that something may get my attention that has nothing to do with you on the other side of the building or the room that needs my attention because something needed that happened I had to hurry up and go to, and I may forget to say, excuse me, I got to go handle this. I may just turn away from you and go, and I've done that to many. Did I say many or Manny? Okay, I've done that to Manny, and I've done it to many, okay? Sorry, couldn't resist. And he pointed it out to me, and I was like, I need to do better with that. And I've been trying to, because one feast he was at, first impression he ever got out of me, he's like, so glad to see you, and I'm talking to him, and I turned right away from him and walked away to handle something. And he was like, I can't believe he just did that to me. He didn't know how red I was. Okay. But now I can work on it because he was bold enough to let me know. Okay? Okay, now. And he'll tell you that when he told me, I didn't get offended. I was like, oh. I just wanted to reassure him that I meant nothing by it. It was nothing personal. And I totally didn't even remember doing it. Okay? Okay, so just recognize that. So with the blues, you want to make sure that you are being respectful that way. I just lost the page I was on. Blues. There it is. Okay, so don't be rude or abrupt. Don't promote too much change. How much change do you guys blues like? No. You like things to be predictable and all like that, okay? All right. Don't expect spontaneity. Don't abandon them. Oh, that's a big one. Don't abandon them. Don't just leave them hanging. Don't abandon those blues. That will play on their insecurities and their self-worth and all that other stuff. Don't abandon them. Okay? Don't expect them to bounce back easily or quickly from depression. Blues get depressed more than any other color. Whites do also, okay? The yellows are too busy having fun. It's hard for them to be depressed. And reds have no time for it, okay? And people have come up to you said, well, they'll ask me if I'm stressed, and I don't understand the question. Blues understand stress. Blues are the ones walking around going, I'm so stressed, okay? And now I'm sure I am stressed. I just don't understand the concept. I have stuff to do, and I'm trying to get it done, but I don't understand what that means. I'm stressed, okay? Okay. So with the blues, don't expect them to bounce back easily or quickly when they're having an emotional swing. It takes time. Give them time to get the emotional swing to come back to more of a level space. Okay, don't demand perfection. They already expect too much from themselves. And don't push them too quickly into making decisions. Don't expect them to forgive quickly when crossed. And don't demand immediate action or quick verbal bantering. Okay? Okay, because they like to process. Not as much as the whites. The whites really like to process. Okay? But the blues do like to process. The reds process while they're doing it. Okay? Okay, so to kind of put that red and blue together, because those are the ones we talked about the most. So when I first started teaching, remember I'm red and my wife's blue. And I got hired to do the Torah portions at a small congregation in Knoxville. And I'd never done one before. And so I don't even know why the guy hired me to do it, because it must have been Yahweh's hand, because he'd never heard me speak before. And so I go to put the teaching together for the Torah portion, whatever. I don't know where we were in the cycle when I got to do my first one. I wish I could remember. That would be so cool. I remember what was the first one. But I don't remember. It was probably I think I started in like September. So probably towards the end of a cycle. Okay? Anyway, because I remember pretty quickly getting to Genesis, like right after the Holy Days. But anyway, so the point is, my wife asked me to see my notes. Now, what would a blue expect the notes to look like? Everything you're going to say meticulously laid out, and that you practiced and rehearsed it, and it fits within your time frame. Wouldn't that be right, blues? Okay. Okay, so I had about a dozen or so bullet points on a sheet, and I showed it to her. She said, no, that's your outline. Where's your notes? I said, that's my notes. What are you going to say? I don't know. Ah! That was her reaction. Okay? She goes, what do you mean? I said, I'll get up there and open my mouth. Something will come out. It'll be fine. She sat in the back of the room near the door. If this goes bad, they don't really know me. I'll just be gone. We're new to the congregation. They met me once or twice. They won't remember. Okay? But that's kind of the thing. As a red, I don't worry about it. I'm just going to get up. It's going to work. I'm going to get it done. I prepared. I just didn't prepare it as organized as, say, a blue would do, okay? But, I did what I needed to do and knew I could do it. Now, the blue, though, would be very meticulous and organized and ready. You have got to see, some of you with your children, go look at the curriculum they're going through. Because that was put together by a bunch of blue women. They're getting better than you're getting from me, trust me now. I mean, they have the most ambitious program to try to get done in 10 days, or not even, okay? I mean, you can't believe the amount of stuff that she's put together, how organized it is. There's instruction. There are crafts. There are snacks that go along with the instruction. There are games and activities that go along with the instruction. It's an incredible amount of work, and so incredibly organized. And then here's the hard part. The blue says to me, I need you to read it because you're the rabbi. You need to prove everything I did. And I'm like, but it's 6 pages and there's 7 of them and that's 43 pages. 42 pages. Okay? I'm like, I find that intimidating. I guess that's not the right word, but I'm like, it's going to take too much time. But I got it done. But I was very impressed with the work. It's so well organized. That's the difference between the red and the blue there. Okay? They're both effective. Do you guys all feel that what I teach is effective? Okay, but you also should see that the other style, completely the opposite, with the children is incredibly effective. So you can be effective in different ways with different styles. Completely different. I came up here yesterday and did the whole teaching, and my notes were Proverbs 5, 7 to 23. Verse 7 to 23. That was my notes. There weren't any other notes. Okay? And so that's something that the blues would never could do that. That doesn't mean that I'm better or worse. It's just a different approach. I don't know how the blue could think things through, put it out on paper, have it planned ahead, and already know that's comfortably what they're going to do. I would feel very limited to the spontaneous. Okay? I'd like the spontaneous. I like to be open to wherever it's going to go. That's scary to the blue. And so that's where we have to recognize some of those colors. So hopefully this was helpful up to this point. Let me just see where we are on time. It's 5:30. We're doing really good. So what I want to do is maybe take some questions, if you want to ask some questions or have some comments about it. I'd love to hear your feedback from the reds and the blues specifically. And on Wednesday, we're going to deal with the whites and the yellows. Okay? Well, first of all, let me ask you this. Was it useful? Was it good? Did you appreciate it? Was it good? Okay? And so we're going to get some mics to go around, or at least a mic to go around. Okay, here it comes. Okay, go right here to Owen in the front, and then we got the opposite. We got Christina in the back. All right, Owen, go ahead and stand up.
Thank you. Do you still need the chair?
No.
Okay, you're good then.
That was funny.
Robert,
It was
thank
funnier,
you.
though, when I did it. Okay. Just to be competitive, I'm being funny. Christina, if you can come up closer, that'd be easier than to come by the mic. Okay, go ahead.
So thank you very much, Rabbi. So you mentioned typically think of the husband being the red and the white being the blue, but what happens is the other way around.
Yeah, no, what the book talks about when it does the colors together, it has little nicknames for the different color combinations. And the nickname for red and blue is blood, sweat, and tears. Great. Like red, yellow is called friendly fire, and they've got different funny names or different combinations, you know. Okay, so if recognize what color is most effective situationally. Okay? In a marriage, it will be most effective if the husband is red. Now, if you're not, you have to figure out how to be red. Okay? Because the red is going to be most effective in leading from point A to point B. That's the best color to effectively lead. But if you have enough blue in there, you'll do it with high standards, high expectations. So you need the blue too, okay? Problem is that if the wife is red and the husband's blue, that's going to be really hard for the wife to let the husband lead. Also, if the wife is blue, it's going to be hard to let the husband lead. That red-blue combination is really tough to get the husband to be able to be okay, wanting to lead. My wife is fabulous, but there are times when I have to say, don't grab the wheel. I know it's hard to not grab the wheel because the blues are always reaching for the wheel. They can't help themselves. It's like I've got this little sweetheart that I like to hold on to, a little redhead. You guys have seen me with her, right? Little Laura Beth. And what does she like to do? She likes to grab glasses. She can't help herself. She just reaches out. It's like automatic. She wants to grab glasses. Okay? Well, that's what the blues are like. They want to grab the wheel. They want to grab the wheel. So if you're a red-blue mix and the wife is red and the husband's blue, you need counseling. Okay? Actually, most combinations need counseling. If you're like a white-yellow combination, you guys aren't getting anything done. And frustrated. Okay? Nothing's getting done, and everybody's frustrated. Well, the yellow's probably happy while the wife is frustrated, or the white is frustrated, depending on which one is yellow or white. But nothing's getting done, really. And if you're both yellow, nothing's getting done, everybody's happy, nobody cares, and everything's a mess. All right? Like when Tevye says about his daughter and son-in-law, you know, they're so happy they don't know how miserable they are. Because they were embracing the yellow. And maybe with some red, recognizing this is what it is. And you know what the red says all the time? Is this what it is? It is what it is. Okay? And so if your combination is challenged, you need counseling. And I feel, look, as a red, I would just say I can handle it, right? But I do feel actually qualified with this program, having studied it for almost 20 years, to help people with their personality combinations. So if you want to call and talk about some of those struggles, I'm very happy to talk to you about them, okay? All right? And so that's not a big deal at all. So I appreciate the question. Okay, Christina.
Okay, so
Hold on. And if anybody else has a comment or question, it'd be good if you just came up and got in line. So if there's empty seats in the front here, just come up here. All right, go ahead.
so you were talking about the differences between a man and a wife who are married, but what if you're blue and red, and how do you deal with the internal issues that you end up dealing with the conflict between the two colors? Because it's already hard enough in a marriage situation, but then you're dealing with it yourself in particular, because I'm blue and red.
Right. Yeah, you purples have it really rough. I'm telling you. You do. I had a purple father. He was much more blue than red, but he was, but you purples really have a hard time, okay? Because the same reason it's a conflict in a marriage is the way it's a conflict internally. You want to lead, but you've got the emotional roller coaster and you've got the whole right-wrong thing clear in your mind and all of these other things that make it sort of an internal struggle. So that's tough, okay? So some of your colors inside of your own, that's why, look, understanding yourself was part one, then so you could understand others. So I'm hoping that now that you see the red-purple, and so the red-blue-purple color, which one's in front, blue or red? Blue? Okay, so you're a blue-purple, which kind of makes more sense. Okay, so when I say more sense, women would generally be more blue than red. So being a blue, red, purple, it would be probably easier if you were red-blue, but being blue-red makes it tougher because the emotions tend to grab that wheel and drive, okay? And so, I could talk to you about it, but at least hopefully you can start to see why you struggle internally. When you read what blue's all about and when you hear what red's are all about, you go, okay, now I understand why there's some inner conflict with that. Just like there could be conflict between, let's say, a blue-yellow. If you're blue and yellow inside, you could be like all wanting to get tests done, and at the same time you could care less and then go have fun. And that's internally struggling if the yellow and blue are close enough in percentages. Okay? Who else? Okay, Aletha?
I was still counting when you put up the percentage sheet, so I need to see that again. But as you were talking, I self-identified myself as a blue.
Okay, what was your numbers?
I didn't even get to see it.
No, the numbers, how many A's, B's, C's, and D's did you get?
I got 10 A's, 14 B's, 12 C's, and 9 D's.
Okay, but I don't think that adds up to 45.
Okay, 10, 14, 12, and 9.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah,
So,
I had to keep
all right, so
counting,
wait,
but
so
I got
14
it.
was B's, right?
Yes.
Okay, so you're blue.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
But you're very much the top three. So you're red, blue, and white. So you got those three as your main ones. Yellow was the smallest, the last one. Right?
I thought the
9,
last
right?
one was white.
No, it's going to
It's
be
yellow?
red, blue, white, yellow.
Okay.
Okay.
Alrighty. So.
Okay?
Okay.
All right, so but identifying as blue, you were correct, because that's your biggest number, 14. Okay? Now, when I said it doesn't, because I'm thinking percentages and I'm realizing it's numbers. So you got 14 questions, blue. Okay, so 14 questions, blue. We'll give you a sheet. I've got one in the back that you could do the math with. Or maybe Marty could just throw it back up on the screen real quick. I don't know. Okay? And then you'll have the screen. We'll put it on the screen and you'll have it behind me. Anybody else have a comment or question?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. And what was your name again?
Daniel.
Daniel.
Yes. In our walk to develop the character of Yeshua, how does that play out in this?
Well, it plays out in this because Yeshua is going to have the most balanced personality style. In other words, he knows how to effectively be whatever it is necessary situationally. We are out of balance, and we're learning to find a wholeness or a congruence in us. And so this is part of how this will help us be effective. Because these are all things, because there are limitations to them, that interfere with or hamper our ability to change into his image. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Okay, so recognize that, I'm not sure if that connects that way, but okay. But so just recognize that because we are looking to, and this is more about the second of the two big commandments. Is that what you're saying? Okay. Which is how do we love each other? And so we're struggling with loving each other because we don't understand each other. And that's what this is all about. This is about understanding yourself. Understanding what makes you so wonderful and successful in some ways and frustrated and struggle in other ways. So that's all this is an exercise of informational exploration to understand yourself. Okay? And so as we strive to be Yeshua-like, it's very hard when we're having a whole big problem just being ourselves. And having the joy and success and security, because we're filled with fears, insecurities, and all kinds of personality quirks that make us really hard to deal with and make us hard to interact with other people. And I think this is an important thing because, after all, if we're going to have a forever community, we're going to have to live with each other forever, and you're still going to be you. Okay? You're not going to stop being you. But maybe we can help get the you that you are be more user-friendly to everybody else. Okay? And that's the kind of thing. And I talked about that a couple of weeks back. I don't know when I did it on one of the Rosh Kodeshes or something. I talked about owning your stuff. Okay? You cannot fully submit until you have full sovereignty over yourself. Does that make sense? Before you can submit yourself, you have to actually have control over you. I can only give you something that I have full ownership and authority over. So if I'm going to fully give myself over to him, I have to make sure nobody else is running the show here but me. So I have to understand me and have control over me before I can submit myself under somebody. And that's why a lot of you struggle with submission, because you don't have yourself under control. And mostly because we don't even understand ourselves. There's a lucky few or an unfortunate few that understand themselves somewhat because they're so quirky in their personalities that they go to get diagnosed. Well, think of this as a diagnosis. Red, blue, white, yellow, that's a diagnosis. That is letting you know in what areas you are hampered or handicapped. Because each color has handicaps, meaning that you are not functional at the highest levels in certain areas because of your color, your personality, not your color, whatever, but your personality. So you struggle, just like a handicapped person struggles to do certain things. Whether the handicap is physical or emotional, whatever it is, if they're handicapped, you will struggle in life to do certain things. Now, if somebody has a physical handicap, we can easily recognize it and treat them a certain way because we know that they're limited to be able to do certain things. If someone is in a wheelchair, we know and understand that they are limited in doing certain things. Or if somebody, is blind, or somebody has a hearing thing, or somebody has a deformity, or they're missing a limb, or something, we know physically there are certain things they're going to have struggles with. And then we can recognize our expectations of them might be a little bit different in certain areas that we know that they just physically have some challenges. Now, when it's an invisible handicap, that's a lot tougher. And so we now expect people to be a certain way, not recognizing that they can't. This was a revelation for me that changed my whole counseling. Because I had a couple that the lady was kind of peripherally connected to us. The husband was nothing to do with us. And they contacted me, the husband did, saying, my wife has left me. She wanted me to talk to you. I don't know what to do. I want to do something. And he was willing to listen. And I talked to him and I worked with him. And then when I talked to her, I heard things like, well, I don't understand why he can't blah, blah. And I don't know why he can't do this. And why can't he just say he loves me? Why can't he? And then all of a sudden, the Ruach smacked me in the head and said, what if it's because he can't, not because he won't? Because she meant, why won't he? But she said the word can't. Because she was receiving it as won't. Okay? So when I do certain things as a red that you expect to be different because that's not the way you would want it done, or etc., maybe it's just something I can't do without consciously forcing myself to be there. In other words, I'm handicapped. And my expectation out of you, if you're whatever color you are, I have to accept that if I know that there's a handicapping there. You may struggle to do something in a certain way effectively. Does that make sense? Is that fair? Okay? So this is, consider yourself now in group therapy, and I just gave you guys your diagnosis. Okay? Yeah, so you can clap for that. Because I often joke about how, whatever color that somebody's struggling with should be a diagnosis. It should be. It should be a labeled diagnosis. And if people knew and they understood it, they would treat you differently because they would recognize that certain things are going to be going on because you can't control it easily. Not that you can't control it, but it's not something you're doing because you won't or because you're rude. Look, if I treat you abruptly and it feels rude to you, it may not be because I'm being rude. It's because I'm red. But you can receive it like, well, I don't know why. He must think of me a certain way to treat me like that. Because you must receive it now thinking, well, for him to treat me that way, he must think of me a certain way. No, maybe I just treat everybody that way because I have not accomplished the overcoming of my handicap. Now think of that with, okay, my wife struggles with my yellow daughter, which means that stuff generally doesn't end up where it's supposed to be and is usually on the floor. And I'm not trying to embarrass her. All you yellows, you know what you struggle with. You tend to be messy, don't you? But you know what? The person who's dealing with the yellow person, if they understood that, would hopefully be a little bit more tolerant and less upset, recognizing that it's not a won't, and it's not because they don't care, it's not because they just don't want to listen, it's because they don't even think about it. It's not a thought. I had to explain this to my wife. My wife is an obsessed photographer. She wants to document everything we do in life. Okay? If we're sitting and eating, if we're going to, she wants everybody stop, take a picture, stop, take a picture. And to a red, I'm like, you are going to make me want to scream. Stop interrupting what we're doing. You can take all the pictures you want while I'm doing it. Don't make me stop. Okay? And so she got upset with me on our honeymoon because she said, well, how come you never asked, because I was like in all these pictures because she made me pose in front of everything. She goes, well, how come you never thought to ask me to be in any pictures? I said, because it never even occurs to me to take a picture. But she took it personally. She's blue. She thought, he doesn't love me. He doesn't want to take a picture of me. No. That thought never enters my head to take a picture. I've owned 5 or 6 cameras in my life and taken 20 pictures, okay? I'll take them with me to places like this and never pull them out and never use them, okay? Because that thought doesn't occur to me. It has nothing to do with who I'm with or it's nothing personal. So recognize as a blue, as a white, as a yellow, as a red, certain things will never occur to you, or when you do them, you don't mean them the way they may be received. It's a handicap. Is this making sense? And what I'm hopefully you're learning through this exercise is a way to start identifying and recognizing them so that you can work with them. Fix the ones in you, tolerate, be patient, and appreciate the ones in others. Okay? So you'll recognize that, hey, if they are whatever the color is, then this is not personal. This is just because that's their default. And it's not their fault that they have the default. Okay? And so that hopefully will increase our tolerance and patience with each other by recognizing. By the way, and if you recognize that your spouse or your friend or whatever is red, then appreciate all of the things you can get from their being red, while you have to now tolerate the other stuff. And if your friend happens to be blue or your spouse happens to be blue, appreciate all the stuff that they bring that's so wonderful, but it also comes with it the other side. All colors, all personalities come with both sides. The good stuff and the bad stuff. The strengths and the weaknesses. But you don't get one without the other. So when you appreciate all of those wonderful things that they bring, the blues with the loyalty and their attentiveness to detail and their organizational skills and all that, and their caring and all, but you also get their intolerances and their insecurities and their fears. The reds, they're able to get things done and they're very competent to accomplish whatever, but they also can be rude and abrupt and insensitive. It's a package. But if you focus on the stuff you don't like and don't appreciate what you also get with it, you miss the point. Okay, I'll give you an example. Some of you will get it, some of you won't, because it has to do with the context of your background with television. How many of you remember the original Star Trek? Okay, do you remember the episode when Kirk went through the teleporter and the transporter split him in two? And one side of his personality was what? Red. And he was mean, obnoxious, cocky, arrogant, whatever. He was kind of red-yellow. He's a prankster. He just was all these negative things. But yet, Kirk couldn't do what he needed to do without that part of himself. As much as he wanted to have that guy killed and gotten rid of, or whatever it was, he realized the strength to make decisions, the strength to be creative and spontaneous, that the enemy would not expect things, was all in that other part of him that was so awful. Do you remember that episode? It was a great example of learning about how we are both good and bad in terms of, not bad like good evil, bad evil, that kind of thing, but like we are, good meaning things that people like about us and things that they really don't like so much about us. We're a mixed bag. And so I think of that episode because essentially it was the red part that came out, okay? But his blue part couldn't make the decisions and couldn't really pull the call and was too afraid to make the wrong call and do the wrong thing. And so the blue, with all the insecurity, needed the red to confidently, because he was he was a dominant red. Kirk was red, that's it, okay? But when that red part was pulled out of him, he couldn't function. And so that's what I want you to understand. You can't pull the negatives out because that whole color comes with the good and the bad, the weaknesses and the strengths. And so don't tell me that you don't appreciate those strengths in your spouse, because you're just only focusing on the weaknesses is why you don't even appreciate it. You got to focus on and appreciating I don't care what color you are, all of you have wonderful strengths. The whites, the yellows, which we didn't cover yet, we'll cover them next time, and the reds and the blues. Fantastic strengths, okay? That bring wonderful elements to every relationship. But those weaknesses are tending to be the things we focus on, the irritations and the negatives. So let's not do that. Turn off your phone. Okay. All right? So I just want to make sure that we covered that, because I think that this is an exercise that could hopefully finally start to break through some of our maturity aspects of growing up. Because now we have some information that when we could take it and turn it from information into relation and relate with the materials, maybe now we can change a little bit. Okay? Keep your strengths. Work and build them up even more. Work on pushing the limitations and the weaknesses out. Strengthen them up by bringing in the strengths of the other colors that balance them. Okay? If I could bring the blue in, I have none. That's part of why I'm way out of balance. But if I could bring the blue way of thinking of people, the rudeness and all that stuff, the abruptness, and that stuff would go away, because the blue wouldn't do that to you. The blue would always be sensitive to you and care about that. But you got to remember, I'm more handicapped than most of you because I have 2 zeros. So have more patience with me, please. Okay, I'm going to work on those, but for me to be blue or white has to be completely by conscious effort. I have to be consciously aware that that's needed at that moment to do it, because I don't have any. Okay, and that's really tough. And I've taken this test knowing what the scores were, trying to find a way to answer one question blue. So you didn't know what A, B, C, D, what that was. I did when I took it the second time, and I got the exact same score. Okay? And I really did. I thought, is there any way I could justify a B anywhere? And I couldn't. Now, maybe if I work on myself enough, I can get there where I'm now that way. But up until then, there was no justification. I couldn't get a blue answer. Okay? That's a handicap. So some of you feel like, because I've had a lot of people leave this ministry, almost all of them left over personality. They really did not know how to handle me and my personality. And that's because I'm handicapped. I have a broken personality. It's deficient. If you don't have all 4 colors, you are deficient. If you don't know how to walk in your 4 colors, you're deficient. We're all deficient. So you need to understand that as a leader of this group, I'm really struggling. Now, bear in mind, though, to be the leader who also is a leader over other leaders, I need to be very red. Okay? It's necessary to lead leaders. What color do you think Moses was? Red. Okay? Moses was definitely red. Okay? But now after they whined and complained and drove him crazy, what did he say to Yahweh? Please just kill me. If I've done anything that you like. And the reason was because he was about to pop his cork. Okay? He says, do it before I do this. I don't want to see my evil. Because I'm trying to get these people from here to there, and they just won't listen. You know. They just won't listen. Okay, so you see, you can start identifying some of the personalities when you go through the scriptures. And you can really see all that. What color was Peter? Oh, yeah, very blue. Okay? You know, I mean, he's there going, Yeshua's going to wash his feet. And he goes, no, no, no. And then Yeshua says, but if I don't do that, then you're not of us. And you're not, oh, then wash my whole body. Woof. Woo, there goes those emotions. You go, you blue Peter. He's the one drawing the sword, chopping off the ear. He's also the one denying him 3 times. That guy's all over the map. But loyalty was his thing, because then he felt really awful. But he was a fearful person. He was insecure, and he had his issues, right? Okay? And he also had a very clear idea. He's telling Yeshua what's right and wrong. Oh, no, no, you don't get to wash my feet. Well, I don't know. Whatever Messiah wants to do, I'm letting him do whatever he wants to do. Okay? And so, yeah, you see, so now you're starting to identify guys in their colors. He's blue. Okay? Judas also, not trying to insult you blues, but Yeshua wasn't what Judas wanted him to be. And he saw it very clearly how he wanted to go. That's an extreme badness on the blue side. You can see extreme badnesses on the red side too. I'm just saying, every color you can see an extreme. All right? And so you can start to see how these things play out. So it gives you a fun tool to play with. The same thing, look, even in this country, okay? The Democrats at this point are mostly acting like blues, and their emotions are way out of control. They see the world in the way they want to see it. Nobody else can have a different idea. And they can't deal with a red president. And I'm not saying he never did anything dumb or wrong, but he's red. And they say, well, he's so angry. Angry? He's a wise guy. He's sarcastic. He's being a red-yellow. But the blue scenes, he says, well, he's angry. You know. But they don't understand the redness. He's just a red. He's an extreme red. Okay? And so kind of just very kind of like, you know, and they're attacking him. He's like, let them attack. Who cares? They'll lose in the end or whatever. He never seems to react emotionally. But the blues paint him, though, like, he's such an emotional guy. You're the guys who are acting all emotional. And we see this all playing out. Okay? The media is extremely blue at this point, and they don't know what to do with a red president. And so we could see how this plays out. We got beautiful examples of it all over the place, all right? And so we can see. And I'm not saying I'm for or against any of this. I'm just trying to show you that you can see it playing out, okay? You can see how it's going. All right, hope that was a blessing. We're going to go ahead and wrap this up because dinner is starting in 5 minutes, all right? Okay, so let's go ahead and close this. I'm going to go ahead and give a quick prayer here. Avinu Malkeinu, our Father, King Father, we want to come before you, and we want to appreciate that you've inspired some of the people in the world to study human behavior enough to help us to understand ourselves. We recognize that you didn't give us like 100 volumes, you gave us a Bible. And in that Bible, in the scriptures, we have only so much information to deal with life. And so much of its history of watching others live life and their struggles to show belief and trust versus their fears and doubts as they come into covenant with you. And so we understand that the book doesn't cover everything, but we appreciate excuse me, that there are those that you have inspired to identify and understand us a little better so that we can understand ourselves, and in understanding ourselves, hopefully we understand others. Because, Father, we understand that you're doing something that's a group thing, that's a community thing. It's about a people, not an individual. And, Father, we want to be the children of Israel. We want to be your people. We want to be that forever kingdom people. And so, Father, we want to be able to feel comfortable with each other and appreciate each other and love each other and have patience and tolerance for each other, truly as Yeshua had for all of us and does have for all of us. And so, Father, we want to thank you for the opportunity and ask that you would have us go past, leave here today changed, recognizing that we are also different and appreciating those differences and recognizing the more we learn, the more we have an opportunity to change and to grow. So we thank you, we appreciate, and we put all these things into your hands as we come before you in the authority of Yeshua, our Messiah, our example. In his name we pray. Amen. Amen. Amen.